It is so tight in the Airthings Masters before we kick off the last day of preliminaries. 8 players will qualify for the quarterfinals. 4 players will be knocked out, and believe it or not, no one is safe. So we are in for a very exciting day of chess. Welcome to the Champions Chess Tour.
Welcome to my humble abode.
This time I'll be playing from Moscow, but here's where I live.
And he found it! And he found it! Oh, look at the bark!
This is my usual work spot.
I just want to see how he's suffering.
Oh, that is serious action.
You need a very good mouse. There's the old mouse I use for all the other tournaments.
It can be a little bit dark in here.
This is a crucial moment now. I think Levon is bobbing faster than ever. Jovanka.
I'll certainly try to be in killer mode from the get-go.
For winning the Skilling Open is not enough. I need some more.
The Airthings Masters is the first major in the Champions Chess Tour, and today it is all about qualifying for those quarterfinals. And to help us everything that will be happening, we have Women's Grandmaster Jovanka Houska and Grandmaster David Howell. And David, yesterday, 21 out of 24 games ended in draws. What was that all about?
Yeah, maybe something was in the air, something in the water. It's not what we like to see, all those draws. But I think today it set the stage for a very exciting a few rounds of chess. I'm hoping for a lot more fight, though, in the players.
Yeah, because Jovanka, it almost seemed like the mentality for the players was to play it safe, was to play for those draws. What will be the mentality today?
Well, I think we're going to see a big combination of the two. There are some players who certainly will play completely safe and not take any risk at all. And then there are those players in the danger zone who cannot do this at all. And they will have to come at their opponents like Vikings, berserking their way to victory.
Because it is all about now qualifying for the quarterfinals. What will the next days in the Airthings Masters look like?
Oh, well, this is what everything is building up to. There's going to be the knockout stages, and the quarterfinalists will play 2 head-to-head matches comprising of 4 rapid games per day. And if the results are tied, things heat up with a blitz and maybe even an Armageddon games. And this continues until the semi-finals and until the finals. And then, oh my God, we're going to find out who the winner of the Airthings Masters is. They'll walk away with $60,000 and a golden ticket to the grand final in September.
And David, with only 12 players, 11 rounds of preliminaries, how are the players feeling before kicking off the last day of preliminaries?
I think they'll be more nervous than ever. The first couple of days, it showed that nobody's really feeling confident. Nobody's really stamped their mark on this tournament. And as we mentioned, nobody's safe. There's only 1.5 points difference between first place and last place. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Now, yesterday, only 3 games ended with a winner and a loser. But even with all the draws, we had some really exciting chess.
The second day of the Airthings Masters saw the early leaders happy to keep the status quo.
Are we about to see a result? I think we might be about to see it.
Oh, no.
That was over before I even got time to explain the opening. Wesley so smiling there.
He's just laughing at them.
It's disappointing when this happens because you kind of, in chess is a spectator sport, you kind of want some blood and thrill. That draw was just the beginning for the morning-weary Americans.
Wesley, so he's only been by playing chess today for 15 minutes or so after 3 rounds.
He's just got to man up and start trying to fight because he won the first series. He knows he can win most of the games. So rather than shaking hands too quickly, fight.
It must be said, even some of the short draws were spectacular.
They repeat the position like this 3 times. This is called the windmill technique. The funny thing about that is, though, normally when you see a stunning tactic like that, it ends up with someone winning. But in this case, Wesley uses a stunning tactic to get himself that important draw. So well done, Wesley.
Both Nakamura and So ended the day with 4 draws, but they are still en route to qualifying for the quarterfinals, much to Nakamura's joy.
Hikaru Nakamura, he started laughing for like 20 seconds after that game against Wesley. So he actually laughed longer than that game lasted, Jovanka. But was that so funny to him?
Well, clearly it was. I mean, I'm glad he found it funny. But definitely he's setting the scene for today because everything is so tense. And we're super excited here in the studio to find out who's going to get eliminated. And we have to say, tell us at home who everyone is cheering for. Who do you think is going to get eliminated? We're dying to know. And you can do this by tweeting us on the hashtag #ChessChamps and we'll feature them on the show.
Definitely. The players need all the help they can get today because it is so tight on the standings list. Let's take a look at what it looks like before we head into round 9 of 11. So we do have those 6 players on 4.5 points, David, and then Alexander Grishock and Jan Nepomniachtchi fighting just behind there on 4 points. And then those 4 players on the bottom here, they're not qualified right now.
That's right. Those guys are in the danger zone. A loss or two for Anish Giri or David Anton at the bottom there will eliminate them. Meanwhile, the ones I think who will be the most nervous are Alexander Grishock in place 7 and Jan Nepomniachtchi in place 8. Those guys are so close to dropping out. Just one bad game and their chances will be gone.
And will players, Jovanka, on 4.5 points feel safe here? Or do you think they also need to play for wins today?
Yeah, definitely. It's a risky strategy to play it safe because, like you say, it could be one bad game and that's it. They're out. So I think everyone will be going in with a very gung-ho mentality and getting ready for those victories.
And if we have this situation, David, with several players on the same score, what decides who qualifies for quarterfinals?
So if there is a big bunch of players on the same score, there are 3 potential tiebreakers, ways that we will separate them. The first will be the head-to-head results. Then we will look at the number of wins that they've scored throughout the tournament. If the players still can't be separated in this unlikely scenario, then we will be getting the calculator out. We will be trying to work out a complicated maths equation. This is one I made at home earlier. Yes, it will get very, very nervy for the players.
Glitter calculator. You said yesterday that your skills in mathematics is not too great, but this is what you have to do today, David.
Exactly. I know what 1 + 1 is. Everything else I need to work out on the calculator.
All right, it's going to be complicated, no doubt about it. When it's so tight, just 1.5 points between top and bottom, Jovanka.
Yeah, absolutely. So much will they, won't they? I don't know. Anything can happen, and I'm so looking forward to it.
And, Magnus Carlsen, we haven't talked too much about him. He is one of those 6 players on 4.5 points. He was one of the few players yesterday who did get a win in the first round against Daniel Dubois. But the world champion, he is not too happy with his play so far.
It's about trying to be solid tomorrow, not collapse. I have 2 tough games as black, so I assume they're going to come at me pretty hard. But as long as I can sort of stay solid, I should be fine. Maybe I can get a win tomorrow as well, so that I can get a good seed. But overall, the tournament standing's okay. The play isn't great.
I need to win 2 games. I think I've got 2 whites, so that's going to be the plan. It's very unfortunate to be in this situation because, of course, everybody now who is on a good score, they're just there chilling and playing safe against each other, just waiting for the tournament, for the qualification phase to be over. And people like me who are, in the gutter, we have to fight our way back. So it's going to be hard, but I feel my play has been okay, my shape is okay. So if I get a bit luckier, maybe I'll manage to win and not lose. And yeah, with 2 wins, I'll make it, but it's going to be very hard. I'll try my best.
Anish Giri, one of definitely the big profiles in chess, David. He was excellent in the Skilling Open in the first few days. Do you think he will qualify, or is he just not looking too good in this tournament?
I think he still has decent chances. He is in last place at the moment, joint last place, but we interviewed him yesterday. He said he was feeling good. He felt he was actually playing quite well, despite the results. He's such an interesting personality and such a fascinating player to watch. I've got my fingers crossed for him.
He is facing Maxim Vachier-Lagrave in the first game today. Both players need to fight to actually qualify. Who do you believe in is the best in that matchup?
Well, it's going to be such a great game. You have Anish Giri, who is very well prepared, and then you have Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who is, in fact, Mr. Tricky. He's got such a tactical style. And, in fact, MVL has been tweeting, so he knows he has an uphill task, and he says he's trying to achieve the home run tomorrow with a blue sign of validation. And there he has a picture of himself with an Airthings device. Whoa. So he's been given the all go-ahead from Airthings because he's had great air quality. Right. There you can see the tweet. Yeah, he's been Mr. Perfect in that respect. I think he's been a clear first there. But yeah, he definitely has an uphill task today. black pieces against Anish Giri. Going to be a tough one.
Fantastic. And we know Giri, we've been following his CO2 levels, which have been horrible. So, I mean, Maxim may be leading the way in air quality. Now, the Champions Chess Tour is all about online chess. The players are sitting at home playing. And that means the time difference is an aspect here. Some players are playing in the morning, some are playing at night, in the evening. We see Hikaru Nakamura. It's just so interesting. Every day when we take this map up, it's not even 6 a.m. for him. David, have we seen Hikaru been tired so far?
Maybe that's why he was laughing in the video earlier, Hikaru Nakamura. Maybe he's just so sleep deprived. That being said, I think as the days go on, he will start to warm up and get used to that. I mean, he'll recover from that type of jet lag in a way. And yeah, I think the best is yet to come from those American players who are yet to really shine in those morning times.
And we see Anish Giri and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, the two players who we will follow in the first round, Jovanka, playing in the same time zone. 3 o'clock, almost there now. Is this a perfect time for chess players to play?
I think so. I mean, this is the standard time where chess players play, so they're very, very used to all this. And they would have had a chance to actually relax, have a good night's sleep, prepare a little bit, so they will be in optimum shape.
And we still don't know where Magnus Carlsen is. The clock in the corner there was Magnus Carlsen. Any clues so far, David?
We know it's somewhere warm. We know he's been looking very flushed during the games, and we saw the air quality. It's very humid where he is. That being said, we have no idea. Big mystery.
All right. Well, we are heading into the first round of day 3 in the Airthings Masters. It is now all about qualifying for those quarterfinals. So let's take a look at the games in round 9. We will have Alexander Grishock facing Magnus Carlsen. Jovanka, who is the favorite?
Well, definitely, this is going to be so exciting. Grishock, of course, such an aggressive player, but I do have to say, Magnus Carlsen, he is the big boss. He is the champ. I think Magnus Carlsen is the favorite.
And then we have the American Hikaru Nakamura. He's going to play David Anton. He is in bottom of the table. David, is Nakamura the huge favorite in this game?
I think he has to be, despite the fact he's starting at 6 a.m. in the morning. He did beat David Anton in the Skilling Open in the first leg of the Champions Chess Tour. It's hard to look past Nakamura there.
And then an all-Russian encounter with Jan Nepomniachtchi facing Daniil Dubo. Two players, we actually had them talk together the other night, Jovanka. Who's the favorite amongst these two?
Well, Dubov has been so impressive for me. He has already played the game of the tournament. Such a fantastic victory against David Anton. So I'm hoping for Dubov.
And then we have Levon Aronian, who's looked so solid. He's facing Pentla Harikrishna, who has not been too solid. David, do you think Levon Aronian here will get off to a great start?
Well, Harikrishna, he needs to take those risks. He's in those bottom 4 places right now. So Levon, he'll be trying to keep things solid and wait for his chance to counterattack if Harikrishna pushes too hard.
And then Wesley So, the winner of the Skilling Open, he's playing Timur Rajabo. And Wesley So, he played so many super fast draws yesterday. Does that mean he saved his energy for this game, Jovanka?
Well, in theory, yes. But, I'm sure karma will have something to say. Those quick draws might come back to bite him today.
And then we have the game that we will follow, the one we mentioned. It is between Anish Giri and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, two of the biggest profiles in chess, but they are right now outside the qualification for quarterfinals. This will be very tense, David.
Yes, this is the big one of the round. Both players need to win, and that makes for a very fighting game. We also see there on the screen their head-to-head scores in in speed chess, in rapid and blitz chess, and it's clear who's in the ascendancy. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave with 12 wins, Anish Giri only with 5 wins. That means maybe Maxim Vachier-Lagrave has the psychological edge heading into this game.
What do you think is Anish Giri's mentality heading into this, Jovanka? And here we see it. We are just about to start. It's 1 minute until we start off round 9, the first round of day 3 in the preliminaries. Most of the players are ready, sitting by the boards. We are missing a few of them. They need to get to the boards because the very exciting last day of preliminaries is about to start. Jovanka, what's your expectations now?
Well, I'm expecting Anish to play his normal game. He is normally a very sharp player. He's very well prepared. I'm expecting him just to continue, just to put the last 2 days behind him and just play some good chess.
And there we have Maxim coming to the computer. What can we judge by the looks of these players now, David?
Well, Maxim looks relaxed. As ever, we've seen him with only 20 seconds left on his clock, eating an apple in the past. He's very, very calm, very cool. Anish, he'll be doing those last-minute preparations. And key I think, in this game is that Anish has the white pieces. He said in the interview yesterday he thought that might be the decisive factor. He feels much more confident when he's white.
We are waiting for Anish Giri to join the computer. He is doing his final preparations. It's a very important day for Anish Giri with the white pieces. And in these 3 last rounds for Anish Giri, he does actually have 2 white games. And, oh, David, we have started.
That's right. And Anish Giri, the invisible Anish Giri, is playing...
Yeah, where is he?
Playing chess. Maybe he's, I don't know, under the table, maybe. Who knows? Who knows where Anish Giri is?
But he's making the moves.
Yeah.
And I think we're heading towards your favourite opening, Kaya.
Najdorf.
That's right. We have seen the Sicilian defence. Anish Giri opening with the king's pawn on the first turn. That's not something that we always see from Anish Giri. He tends to play other openings. So this shows he's in the mood to fight. Wow, and Maxim Vachiligov actually goes away from the Sicilian Najdorf. Maxim, he's been playing the Sicilian Najdorf the whole of his career. So he's trying something a bit different this time. Both players trying to surprise each other at this early stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of spooky.
It's a little bit spooky.
We know Anish is there because the moves are coming out, but he's just not visible.
But, you know, Anish is not just a great competitor. He's also a great tweeter, and he came up with a great tweet. Did you know that being high on CO2 can cause a lack of creativity when composing a tweet? Other negative aspects of high CO2 levels, concentration today at 3 p.m. CET. And it seems to me there is also another side effect there. Can cause invisibility.
There we have it. The air quality. Anish Giri needs to better that. And he has made a move, David.
That's right. So Anish Giri, he's brought all of his pieces out at the moment. He's brought his knights out, the white knights, into the centre of the board. The white bishops are nicely in the centre too. And if we bring up the analysis board, we can see why Anish Giri played that last move. White's last move was to bring his queen forward 1 square. Nicely centralised, doing a good job. But most importantly, his king, White's king, now has 2 fantastic options. He can choose to bring it to the left side or the right side, depending on which side he thinks will be safer. If Anish Giri brings his king to the left side here and castles, I think Maxim Vachiligov also brought his queen out. If Anish Giri brings his king to this left side of the board, then we will see a very, very attacking game. Anish Giri, he'll throw everything forward on this side. He'll push all of his pawns on the right side, and he's going to throw everything in. It looks like he's gambling on this game. Very critical moment here. Which side will Anish Giri put his king on? The right or the left?
Ooh. And we do actually know because these 2 players are not on the same score. Giri is half a point behind Maxim Vachiligov, but we do know if players are on the same score eventually, then it is all about those head-to-heads, number of wins, all of that. So it is very important actually to get the wins against the players that you might end up on the same score as.
That's right. I mean, not only are these 2 direct rivals in the standings table, but also Anish Giri, remember, he has lost a couple of games. So if he does manage to put those wins together, he'll be ahead on those number of wins. His tiebreaks will be better than most of the others. So Anish Giri, he does have something to play for. Let's see whether that rebounds on him if he pushes too hard. He's playing very aggressive so far in this game as white.
I love that about chess, that we can actually see from the first few moves if they are playing aggressively or if they are just...
Okay, we see it there, where the direction that the king went. It went to the left side, and that means war. I love it when this happens. It means war. I remember when I was a child and I discovered this strategy, that when your opponent went one way with their king, you could go the other way and attack like crazy. Oh, made chess easy.
Exactly. And Anish Giri, he did show his aggressive, his ambitious intentions in this game by putting his king on that side. Meanwhile, Maxim Vachiligov tries to counter by putting his knight on the edge of the board. We always say this is inadvisable. This is a bit of a risky strategy. But black, with that last move, with his knight on the edge of the board, is attacking a white bishop right now. So Maxim Vachiligov, he's not lying down. He's not just developing. His last move, bringing this knight here, does attack this bishop. This bishop is now attacked twice by black's queen and black's knight. It's only defended once by the white queen. Therefore, this bishop has to move. I expect to see Anish Giri not spend too long and drop his bishop back to a safe square, one of these 2.
And ladies and gentlemen, Wesley So has played a draw.
Ooh.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Wow.
Is that his longest game so far this tournament?
That must be Wesley So's longest game in the tournament. I just can't believe it. It's almost like he's mocking us now. Just, look at me, I'll do one more fast draw.
It's Yeah.
Speechless.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like there to be a system to actually discourage this type of quick draws. Yeah. And one of the things that I came up with is instead of having like tie breaks, these standard tie breaks, I think that there should be random tie breaks. Maybe they have all the players lined up who have qualified for tie break, and then you have the computer select them random, like
that's fun.
Or you know, just have some fun element, especially when it's all play all, because then it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's just a shame, I think. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Wesley So's. We saw in the Skilling Open, he beat Magnus Carlsen in that final. When he wants to play well, he can. It's just such a shame to see him kind of cruise through these first rounds, not really playing proper chess.
But luckily, we do have some action in the game that we are following. I'm just looking at the bar, and it has gone quite significantly over to Anish Giri's side.
Yeah, that's right. I'm very surprised by Maxime Vachier-Lagrav's last move. If we bring up the board, we can see that he did push a pawn in the center as black. In this position, black pushed his central pawn forward 1 square. He is attacking the white knight, forcing that knight to move. But if you look at it, black's pawn has already moved once, and pawns can move twice on the first go. He's actually wasted a move in a way. He could have pushed this pawn 2 squares forward a bit earlier on. Instead, he moved it forward once and then moved it forward again, losing time. And meanwhile, Anish Giri saved his knight in the middle there, offering a trade of these knights. These knights might leave the board, but one thing I think will be an important factor sooner rather than later is the fact that black king is in the middle. It still hasn't decided where it's going. Black is behind in piece development. Look at white's pieces. All of them are out. All of them are doing something. Black's army is still at home asleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're actually in new territory now with that knight retreat. So this has never been seen before. And everyone on Twitter is looking forward to this game so much. We have a tweet from Georgi Komsjit. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the surname. Anish Giri versus MVL is going to be a very interesting game. Both players are going to be fighting for staying in this tournament. Thank you very much, Georgie, for that tweet. And we also have another tweet from Chess Meme X, who says, everyone is playing for a draw while Anish is playing for a result. This is 2020 at its peak.
Right. Oh, that's a fantastic tweet. Yeah. Anish Giri being so known for all the draws, and here he is fighting.
That's right. 2020's turned everything on its head, clearly.
Yeah.
But I think Anish, okay, yes, he has this reputation for draws, but he's maybe not like Wesley So. Wesley So likes to play for those quick draws, just kill the game immediately. Anish Giri, he tries to fight. It's just sometimes he lacks that final killer instinct. That's why he fails to win some games, and that's why occasionally he does have those string of draws. Meanwhile, Anish Giri playing it safe, just tucking the white king into the corner. Very, very sensible move there by Anish Giri.
So will Maxim here, with his king still in the middle of the board here, or in his center, where will he castle, and will he castle?
He'll have to think about it. The longer the black king stays in the center, the bigger the risks will be a bit later on when things start to open up. That black king needs to commit itself. It's just which side. And I do think the black king will head towards the right side of the board, the opposite side to white. And therefore, once that happens, we'll see a race. White will attack on the right, black will attack on the left. It's going to be who gets to the opposition king first.
So the most normal situation is that both players castle to the same side.
That's right.
Yeah. What are typically games like when they castle to different sides?
They're often quite crazy, wild. When kings are on the same side of the board, it's just harder to attack the opponent because you risk opening up your own king at the same time. But now, if your opponent's castled on the other side, you can just think, oh, I have a free hand. I have no risk. I can just push all the pawns forward. And there we see Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He's moved his bishop forward 1 square, but he's cleared the way for the black king to head towards that right side now.
Wow, so we will have a different side castling. And we do see the air quality for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave now. We have partnered up with Airthings. Some of the players have put these things in the rooms where they're playing, and we can actually monitor their air quality. And Maxime, it's okay, but the CO2 level is not great. It's going to be interesting to see for Anish Giri if that's... there we have it. Wow, that's red. That means CO2 level is still very bad for Anish Giri.
Yeah, it definitely affected him, I think, on the first couple of days. It's no coincidence that he seemed to struggle a bit for energy, maybe, and those CO2 levels very, very high. That being said, if he did say if he does open the window, he gets a bit cold. So it's just choosing the lesser evil.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been such a fascinating thing for me to have these devices that we can actually look at and see the statistics, because I've never ever thought about air quality being perhaps correlating to quality of play. And here we have it, actually. It's no coincidence.
And definitely now with the online format where the players are just sitting in different rooms. They're not sitting with the same air quality. They're sitting in different rooms in their homes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just brilliant. I mean, and it's also not just for chess, because I can see how this can impact, like if you're working from home, you know, we spend so much time sitting at the desk. And, you know, if the carbon dioxide levels are just too high, then you're going to get sluggish and it's going to have really negative impacts on your health.
Right.
So I just love this.
I agree. Well, the air quality for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave was a little bit better than for Anish Giri, but I'm guessing by the bar and what you guys have been saying that Anish Giri is better on the chessboard.
That's right. Personally, I like Anish Giri's position.
I also like Anish Giri's position. I mean, give me a position where I can throw my pawns forward and start going crazy with them. I just love it. And you can see that pawn has inched its way slowly up the board, but it's getting ready for another pawn to start advancing forward. So I can't wait to see those pawns go on the right side.
Yeah, a bit of a waiting game by Anish Giri there. He's asking black to commit his king before white's pawns start rushing up that right side. Basically, Anish was saying, OK, I dare you. I dare you to castle your king to that side because you know I'm going to attack you. But Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, as black says, no, I'm still going to wait. Both sides waiting. Black just developing his bishop to the middle there. Another sensible move. For viewers, though, who are new to us, we should explain the bar. We've mentioned it a few times. It's that purple bar just above the players' cameras. If it slides towards the left, it means that white is doing very well. If it slides towards the right, then black is in charge. At the moment, it says 0.9. That means that white has an advantage. It's almost a pawn's worth of an advantage, but that could all change in one move.
Exactly, right? Because the thing is, the great thing about chess is that Anish actually isn't a pawn up. The material is level, so that just means the momentum is on his side, and that if he doesn't continue in the correct way, well, that advantage could start to slowly evaporate, and that's it. You know, the initiative could immediately change.
Oh, look at the bar with that move. It just... Was that a bad move by Anish Giri?
Ooh, I don't think it was necessarily a bad move. Maybe there were better moves in the position. I think that black maybe has now an opportunity to attack on the other side of the board. If we do bring up the analysis board, we can see what I think Maxime Vachier-Lagrave should do. We saw Anish Giri with his last move push this pawn. He wants to throw everything forward on this right side in anticipation that the black king will also be on this side of the board. But the key thing is that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he hasn't committed yet. His king still has flexibility. It can go either side later on. Meanwhile, he should leave his king there. He should leave the black king and start attacking on this side. Both sides should push their pawns forward. If Maxime Vachier-Lagrave pushes this pawn, he will attack the white knight. Black's attack is maybe slightly quicker than white's attack right now, purely because white has already committed his king.
All right, and it is Maxime Vachier-Lagrave thinking now. And, well, it is a huge and tough competition on the chessboard for the players, but we want to involve you guys in a Twitter quiz as well. We can do this move first before we start the quiz, David.
Yeah, lots and lots of moves there. Black's just attacked this white knight. The white knight ran away, but it is on the edge of the board. We've said this so many times. Knights on the side of the board are not happy. Knights on the rim are dim. And meanwhile, white had to put his knight on the edge of the board. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, as black, said, no, my knight was terrible on the edge. He's brought it towards the centre. And actually, the last couple of moves have gone in Maxime Vachier-Lagrave's favour. Black centralising his knight while forcing his opponent to misplace his own.
Wow. All right. Well, I don't know if Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has a pet at home that is cheering for him, but we do know that a lot of the players do have pets at home. We've seen Levon Aronian with his dog Ponchik. Yes, Ponchik. And we've seen Wesley So. He's got his 2 cats. Yeah, look at that. Levon brought his dog on, and he said his dog is always there loving it when he plays good moves. And then we have, I think it's Zanzibar.
That is his name, the Zanzibar.
Yeah.
And I know Nepomniachtchi also has a cat. I think it's called Richie or Ricky or something.
So a lot of chess pets. And that's why the quiz for today, Jovanka, is all about pets.
Exactly. We decided to get a bit creative with our quiz and ask you, what is the best chess-inspired name for a pet? And you can tweet us your answers using the hashtag #ChessChamps. And even better, if you have pictures, then please use Instagram with the same hashtag and show us those pets. And remember, it's going to be so much fun.
Yes.
But yeah, remember, what is the best chess-inspired name for a pet? So get thinking, send us your pictures on Instagram, send us your tweets. We would love to feature feature them on the show.
I had a suggestion.
Yeah, you should do it.
I thought it was quite good.
Yeah.
Cat Sparrow.
Cat Sparrow.
Ah.
Oh, it's too good, too good.
Or it could be just Bobby Fish. If you have a fish. Bobby Goldfish.
You've definitely put some thought into this.
I'm going to be thinking about this all day now. All right. Well, it is Anish Giri, the invisible Anish Giri, thinking about his next move now. He's quite a lot down on the clock now, David. Should this be worrying for Anish?
Actually, just before the game, I was wondering what might be the decisive factor, and the clock times kind of hinting that Anish Giri is not as confident as he usually is. He has been affected by those first 2 days. He's maybe slowed down a bit. He's being a bit indecisive. We're still at an early stage, and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave on the other hand, is famous for playing extremely quickly. He's never seems to be behind on the clock. He's always very practical. He's happy to play those moves which are good enough. He's not always looking for the perfect move. Maybe Anish Giri is just trying to be a bit too perfectionist right now.
Well, it's fun to watch the bar now. It's swinging back and forth. It seems both players are not playing the perfect moves here.
That's right, and we should mention again, the bar, it is the ideal move. It's what the computer, the kind of all-seeing, omnipotent computer judges to be the evaluation of the position. But these guys are humans. They're geniuses, but they're humans as well, and they're just playing the moves that they think make the most sense, and they don't have the time on the clock to always look for the best move every time. That's what's so exciting. It makes chess a real sport.
Yeah,
is it sometimes like that when you're playing? Because now for the last few moves, we've seen that the bar, when the player's made a move, the bar has gone the opposite way. Is it sometimes like that you just don't want to make a move because you feel like any move you make is just going to worsen the situation for yourself?
Yeah, it can be. That can happen. Certainly when you feel that you're losing the thread, when you feel like, OK, I have an advantage and you haven't played the best moves, and suddenly that advantage kind of seems to be disappearing. And you just know that, OK, you really want to do something, but you don't really know what to be doing. I mean, it happened to one of my friends. He was playing Vishy Anand, one of the former world champions, and he was 3 pawns up. And then then 3 pawns became 2 pawns. And he was like, I really want to offer a draw, but draws were not allowed. And then 2 pawns became 1 pawn, and that's it, he lost. So, yeah.
Sometimes better just not to make a move. And Anish Giri, he moved his knight.
That's right, and Anish Giri with white there, just retreating a knight, but he's trying to get rid of black's best piece. This is just, in general, quite a good piece of advice for everyone, for beginners, for grandmasters. If you don't have a plan, if you're not sure what to aim for, just think about which piece of yours can be improved or which piece of your opponent's you want to get rid of. And if we bring up the analysis board, we can see this is a very sensible reply from Anish Giri. And I think probably the best move in the position. He brought his knight back. He's eyeing up black's strongest piece. This is the only black piece in the enemy half, so in white's territory, and he's just trying to get rid of that now with his knight, his bishop, and his queen. 3 pieces attacking this black knight. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave has to do something about this right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you have to, that knight, that black knight is in the enemy camp. He needs to be getting rid of. It's good philosophy just to get rid of those enemy pieces. And yeah, I really like this move by Anish Giri. And yeah, we have a great tweet from Jürgen Lutz. He says, Anish Giri seems to have activated his cloaking device. It does look like that he will mobilize all his available resources to make it to the quarterfinals. Yeah, go Anish, go.
It's like that invisibility cloak in Harry Potter.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
When you want to do the most damage, you just hide yourself.
I must admit, it's a bit disconcerting just to see a blank screen and the moves just keep appearing. It would be cooler, though, if we could see the hand move.
Ooh, an invisible hand.
Yeah, ooh, that would be creepy. That would be even more creepy. Yeah, I had that invisibility cloak on my wish list for my birthday for many years. I was so disappointed that it didn't exist for normal people.
Okay, so we know what we're getting you for next Christmas. Okay. Yeah, I expect to see Maxim Vachier-Lagrave he's already spent a couple of minutes, but I expect this to be a critical moment. He needs to maintain his best piece if he can. That black knight, it's ominously close to the white king. If he's forced to exchange that, if Maxim Vachier-Lagrave thinks there's nothing better to do than retreat that knight, actually, he has exchanged that knight for white's bishop there. Suddenly, he's lost a bit of momentum. Suddenly, black's pieces are much less impressive than they were just 2 moves ago. Mm-hmm. It's definitely, I think, very clever play there from Anish Giri on the last couple of turns. But I'm worried about his clock. 6 minutes against 10.
I'm also worried about the clock. I'm also worried about that white knight that is stranded on the edge of the board. You know, David calls them dim. I say they fall off the hedge. You know, and just look at it. It isn't very impressive there. I mean, I really am worried about it. That it perhaps, in order to escape, well, Anish might have to do some jumping around. Oh, well, okay, we're going to see my favourite situation occur on the board because Maxim Vachiligorov has castled his king to the right side, and that has been promptly followed by a pawn storm. I love this.
Yeah, Anish Giri, he only spent 2 seconds on that move. He was ready. He was thinking in Maxim Vachiligorov's time. And as Jovanka mentions, Black's king, it's finally committed itself to this right side. It was playing the waiting game for so long, but Black's king now has declared its intentions. And Anish Giri, with his last move, showing he wants to attack, pushing this pawn forward. This pawn is going to continue. These 2 pawns are going to act as battering rams. They're just going to try and break Black's defences on that side. We're seeing exciting chess now. Maxim Vachiligorov, meanwhile, ignoring that, he's going to try and counter on this left side. It's going to be a race. Whose attack will be faster? I'm not sure. I like Anish Giri's chances. It looks like these pawns are going to break through. But Maxim Vachiligorov, he's so good in these types of positions. When he sees the opponent's king, he just hones in on it and nothing will stop him. So this one is exciting.
It is super exciting. We've chosen the right game. You know, we have a pawn race. Both sides are going to be desperately opening lines for attack. Because when you want to attack, you need to open up lines, especially for a rook and the queen. I always call them the big guys. When the big guys come in and start looking at your king, you know that is it, the game over. And so, yeah, Anish has been forced to make a pawn move on the left side of the board, which isn't ideal, but he's done it just in order to just clog things up over there because he cannot allow a line to get open there because that's it. It will be almost game over.
Yeah, and it's normally not a good idea to push pawns in front of your own king. You only create weaknesses when that happens. But this time it was more important to just defend that white knight on the edge of the board and to block Black's pawns on that left side from pushing forward. So Maxim Vachiligorov, he's temporarily been blocked off. So he's trying to use his queen, the black queen, edging. I mean, it's a bit of a surprising move for me. It's edging out there to the edge of to the side of the board, maybe trying to aim at that white knight at some point, but that white knight is protected by white's pawn. So a bit of a mysterious move by Vachiligorov. I would expect Anish Giri to start pushing forward again on that right side. It's time to just kind of go for it.
Right. And who do you think will prevail? This is the big thing because we have a big race here. And indeed, even the viewers at home, please tweet us. Who do you think is going to win? Maxim Vachiligorov or Anish Giri? Your hashtag chess champs. So David.
Yeah, there we go. I think Anish Giri, who's listening to us from his invisible studio at home, he's pushed his pawn again on that right side. This is the chess we like to see. This is what Wesley, so I hope, is watching at home and getting inspired by white pushing there and now Black again playing on the left side, playing on the opposite flank, just ignoring his own king. Black's trying to line up his 2 rooks together now, just lifting up his rook there 2 squares. Anish Giri, he's going for it with his pawns. He knows he needs open lines.
He needs that line open. He needs those lines for that rook because you just want the rook and the queens to align on one open line, and that is it. It's going to be wonderful. Now, yeah, I love this kind of pawn move. It's very thematic, just to play that pawn forward, just to open one of those lines, and yeah.
Is it also a little bit brave?
It is very brave. And what you're seeing here is that Maxim just seems to be ignoring it. Wow. He plays very quickly as well, so it seems to be kind of a thematic response.
But look at the bar now, all the way up to 2 on the advantage on the bar.
Yeah, Maxim Vachiligorov is trying his best to defend here. We see that he's just brought his knight across. We say that a knight is a king's best friend. A knight is a great defender of the king. That's why Maxim Vachiligorov played this move. But he's not closed down any lines on that side. We can see, for example, if white chooses to capture this pawn or this pawn, next move, okay, he's chosen neither. He's preparing that. He's brought his rook across. Next move, something will open up against the black king. White will be able to open up this line by capturing one of these 2 pawns. He's got choices, and suddenly these white rooks, look how beautiful they'll feel opposite this black king. I think this is definitely turning against black right now. Anish Giri, fortune favours the brave. He's going for it, and he might be rewarded.
Fantastic. So we have some drama in this game between 2 of the players who really need to fight to qualify for the quarterfinals. They are right now, before this round, outside the top 8. And we do see on the bottom here, we're following all the games, and we can see by the bars in most of the games that really we have started off with a lot of drama in the first round of day 3.
Yeah, and about time too.
About time.
We've been looking forward to this for a long time. And as Kai mentions, just below there, we see the evaluations. And in the games between Nakamura and David Anton, and also between Aronian and Hare Krishna, White is doing very well. The bar over there on the left side.
Yes.
Exciting. And also in this game, White seems to be doing... Oh, I wish we could see Anish Giri's face now. He must be feeling confident now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have a lot of excitement on Twitter because we've got a Harry the H-Pawn double. Harry the H-Pawn has entered the game. Go Anish, that's a tweet from Kevin Thomas. And then we have Harry Nurek, who says, woo woo, Harry the H-Pawn just started to march towards the king. So big fans of that pawn.
Yeah, it's those two white pawns on the right side there. We call them Harry and Gary because they're on the H and the G lines. And those two brothers, they're doing all the work right now for White. I think they're going to crash through, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, that's why he's thinking right now. He's realising, he's panicking a bit. It's very difficult for Black to even find a move. Look at Black's queen. It's just offside. It's not helping. It's just can't take part in the action on that other side of the board.
And Maxime now needs to think as well. He's been playing so fast the entire game, but now thinking for 2 minutes on now his next move, and there it is.
Yep, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he continues his own plan. He's lined up the black rooks on the same line, on the same file, but those black rooks, they're staring at a pawn that's defended. So those black rooks, they look very nice, they're nice and pretty, but they're not actually doing anything right now. Meanwhile, I think it's time for Anish Giri to try and break through. And there we go. He's opened up a line. I think that's a great move. He's opened up a line towards the Black King. The Black King's forced to step forward, stepping closer towards the enemy army. All White needs to do now is bring more pieces into the attack. It's time to bring the queen in, or maybe that white knight at the bottom of the board there. Bring those towards the Black King. Checkmate will end the game, I think, in this one.
Yeah, exactly. No, we have this very nice expression in chess that when you're attacking, you should invite everyone to the party. Don't leave anyone behind. And I agree with David. Either the queen or the knight needs to get involved. And then it will be curtains, I think, for Black.
It's already looking bad, and the computer agrees. It gives White a 3-pawn advantage, despite the fact that it's equal material on the board. That's how strong White's attack will be, potentially. And we see it. White has brought his knight closer towards the Black King. That knight was threatening a very dangerous check. We see with the knight coming towards the Black King. This check, if Black had just played a random move, this check would have been decisive, attacking the king, attacking the bishop. We call this a fork. It's a type of double attack, and White would have won a piece. Instead, Black had to stop this knight jumping forward, but he's created more weaknesses. This square is a big, big hole in Black's position. I think it's time to bring this knight again towards... Okay, he's used this square for the rook. Anish Giri putting his rook into the enemy position. Next move, he'll line up these two rooks together. It's still great for White. Maybe there was something even better last move, but I think Anish Giri, he's still in control.
Still in control, but this is still very hard to play. It's not easy to find the win here, I guess.
No, it's not easy to find because at the minute the position is dynamically in favour of Anish. You know, it means that the momentum is on his side, but he isn't material up, which does mean that he has to be very accurate and has to convert his advantage into something tangible, basically.
Yeah, and maybe the only criticism we had of Anish Giri in the Skilling Open, the last Champions Chess Tour event, is that he did have a couple of perfect attacking positions and he couldn't find the killer blow. He traded off the queen sometimes. He just couldn't finish things off. So he's built up a great position for White here. White has a big advantage. But will he find that way to break through with less than 4 minutes on his clock?
This is the time for Anish Giri to prove that he can take it all the way to get that win that he really, really needs now to qualify for quarterfinals. And we do see that one game, another game has ended and Hikaru Nakamura has won. He's beaten David Anton and the American is now in sole lead with 5.5 points. Exciting.
Yeah, Nakamura showing that waking up at 6 a.m. before 6 a.m. was not a factor. Nakamura, when he's on fire, can beat anyone. And
I think this unfortunately means that David Anton will be eliminated from the competition because now he's lost 3 games. And that's a bad start for David Anton. I don't think there's any way back now.
We'll look at the equation afterwards. We'll look at the standings. But yeah, that's a shame. He's got so many fans, David Anton, and such a creative player. But up against the top guys in the world, it is hard. Yeah,
you have to remember that there are no easy games, that this is an all-play-all where we have the 12 best players, most ferocious players in the world battling out against each other. And because normally when you're playing a big open tournament, you do badly and you play weaker players. And now here, nope, you got Nakamura.
Yeah, and imagine, David Anton, the lowest seed, He'll have been the name that the other players have been circling before the tournament. They are sharks, these top players. If they smell blood, if they see a weak link in the tournament, they'll be throwing everything at you. And they've just been taking draws against each other and putting all of their energy into trying to play him. That's such a hard situation for him.
Not easy for David Anton, a great player. And Anish Giri, he's not looking too good on the clock, but he did make his move here.
That's right. So Anish Giri steps back with his queen one square. I'm slightly surprised by that one. In general, I don't like to retreat when I'm on the offensive, when I'm trying to attack my opponent. But maybe white there, he's just lining up the queen and bishop on the same diagonal. Maybe the white queen is doing a kind of multi-purpose job. He's keeping an eye on the left side. He's keeping an eye on his king's position, but he's also going to try and attack on the right later on. Bit of a mysterious one by Anish Giri, but he hasn't ruined anything. He's just playing nice and calmly. Yeah,
I agree with you there, David. It seems very mysterious to me. I kind of expected a different move to kind of try to maintain the momentum. Maybe a move with the knight, but as stepping back with the queen and with the clock ticking, I'm slightly concerned that he can't see a clear pan of improvement. And now Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has done something that's kind of like I call the cockroach approach with the king, scuttling away from danger, hiding beneath the floorboards.
That last move by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, if we bring the board up, we can see the plan by black. Earlier, his king actually started on this square. It's back on its starting square. It scuttled across earlier to the right side. Now it's trying to run away. It was being attacked there. He's going to try and run away to the left side of the board. That black king is going on a journey. He's just trying to find a safe haven, but it's not clear where that's going to be. And Anish Giri now brings his knight back towards the left. Maybe he's anticipating Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He's just mirroring that black king. Whichever side the black king goes, he's going to attack. And meanwhile, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave retreating his queen here. Look at this battery. These three pieces lined up now against one white pawn. The two rooks and the black queen.
Yeah, no, definitely. That looks very impressive. But I did really like Anish's last move where he retreated the knight to the centre because he was like, if the king is going to go to the left, then I'm also going to go to left. So I'm expecting something to do with that knight. I expect it to manoeuvre to another square so that it can join in the attack, which is now on the king in the centre. Yeah, and that's quite a rare formation, the queen and the two rooks all on the same line, eyeing up the same pawn. I think if the queen were behind, we would call that something Alekine's gun. But here, okay, we've seen a sacrifice by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave giving up a rook there for white's bishop. That is a sacrifice. A rook is traditionally worth 5 points, a bishop worth 3 points. So he's giving up material, but now black is attacking the undefended white knight on that left side of the board, on the edge of the board. And Anish Giri didn't even pause. He gave up his own rook for a knight. So both sides sacrifice now, and the pawn structure is wild. Both sides have weak pawns. Look at that black bishop, though. That black bishop is locked in behind its own pawns. It's on all of its own pawns. Black's pawns are on dark squares. So the black bishop is not good. Meanwhile, white is slowly trying to improve his knight. White's knight is not impressive either. It's doing a defensive job, but imagine if that white knight gets to the centre later on. I prefer white's position here. I agree with you, David. I really like white's position. I mean, not only is it bad bishop, but look at that white rook that is in the corner. All it needs to do is shift itself one square, and it's got a nice open line to look at and penetrate the black position. So, yeah, I'm loving it. I really also like the last move, which is just to kind of consolidate with that knight and hold those very weak pawns that white has together. And it's just looking really, really nice. You know, none of black's pieces quite kind of make sense. And of course, that black king is so unsafe.
Whoops.
Just look at the air around that king, you know.
Yeah, this black king is not safe. Imagine if white could pick up this rook and put it on a square like this, eyeing up the black king. If white could pick up this knight and just put it on a square like this, beautifully dominating the centre of the board. If white can achieve either of those things, one or the other, then I think white will have a winning advantage. Meanwhile, black has to deal with this black bishop. Just look how bad it is, locked in behind its own pawns. It's just not doing anything. We mentioned it yesterday. It's like a big pawn. It's just not doing anything useful right now.
It needs to grow up.
Yes, it needs to grow up, that bishop.
Needs to find a path.
All right, so Maxime Vachier-Lagrave now thinking for almost 2 minutes. Is this simply what he's thinking about? How can I get my bishop into the action to maybe save this position?
Definitely, I think how to improve that black bishop. Actually, he's doing that by trying to sacrifice a pawn. That is a trick, though. He's putting a pawn on the opposite colour of his bishop, which is a good thing. It gives the bishop more scope. But the black pawn would not White should not have taken that black pawn, and instead we do see a trade in the centre there. So a bit of relief temporarily by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Now he's lifting his rook up. That black rook's ready to swing across to the right side to try and block off the white rook. I think Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, his best hope here is to just survive for the next few moves, try and trade off the rooks. We see that Anish Giri, we've seen it before, he does trade a few too many pieces sometimes. Okay, meanwhile, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave bringing his rook across. I think it's time for White to improve his knight or improve his queen. It's looking good for Anish Giri, but 2 minutes on the clock now. He needs to speed up.
He definitely does, and he is very soon going under those 2 minutes. And we know he's been struggling so much with getting these winning positions all the way to that win. He must be feeling quite nervous now. I wish we could see him, but it's just being invisible there, and it's.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say, yeah, we are super excited about this game. And also, Twitter is also excited. We have a tweet from Jan Sher Khan who says, "This is the best game I'm watching in this Airthings Champion chess. Come on, Anish." You know, Anish certainly keeping everyone entertained here. What a brilliant position.
Yeah, I mean, what a great game compared to some of the others we've seen so far. This is what we like to see, exciting chess. Both players going for it. It does look like Anish Giri, he's in the driver's seat. And okay, he has sacrificed a pawn, Anish Giri. I love that last move. It might not have been the best objectively. Maybe there were better ways to just keep a nice stable advantage, but this shows that Anish Giri, he senses this is the moment to gamble. He's only got a minute and a half left. He doesn't want to maintain the tension. Instead, he's going directly on the attack. If we bring up the analysis board, we can see why White sacrificed this pawn. White pushed this pawn forward. It can be taken in two separate ways. Okay, Black's taken it with the queen. If he'd taken it with the pawn, we would see White's knight jump to a beautiful square and start to attack some stuff. Instead, Black captured with the queen. White recaptured with his own queen. He took back a pawn. Now he's very close, very, very close to this Black king. He's aiming towards it. He's going to give some checks. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, in the meantime, trying to counterattack. Black now has a huge threat to capture this pawn. It's only defended by the white king right now. And the black queen and black rook creating threats of their own. Both sides trying to attack, trying to get the enemy king. Who will be faster?
Yeah, that's so tense. I just can't believe it's so tense because, you know, you mentioned it. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has his own counter threat, which is actually deadly because it can lead to checkmate. And the black pieces, there aren't that many of them, but they are coordinating very nicely together. And, okay, I really like what Anish has just done now. He has moved his queen and he's maneuvered it now so that the black queen can no longer defend. Has to take a different step. But you look at those pieces, they're just all huddled together.
Yeah, I was so nervous and excited a moment ago.
Yes.
I could barely talk.
Look at the bar now.
And yeah, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he's moved his bishop across one square, but White has many, many options. He could bring his queen to check the black king. That queen would be protected by the white rook. Another option, I think, would be very, very strong for White, would just be to improve this knight slowly. Or maybe the best out of all of them would be to bring this rook across one square, bring it up to check this black king. Either way, White is on the attack. Black's bishop has no targets. It's just doing a defensive job. White is the one in charge here.
But the one move, I just have to point out, the one move that you cannot play, you cannot get greedy and try to snatch that pawn. Because if you do that, then what's going to happen is that black is also going to take a pawn. And once the king moves to the corner of the board, it looks like everything is good, right?
It does, for now.
It does look absolutely safe, except there is going to be a trick that we're going to call the back rank mate, where the black queen gives herself up. And after rook takes queen, rook takes rook is forced. And the king is just jammed in by its own knight and pawn and cannot escape.
That's right, the king would be trapped, so black would sacrifice a queen there and give checkmate. Anish Giri, okay, he doesn't fall into that trap, but Anish, he's playing a defensive move. That's not what we like to see there. If we catch up with the game position, he's just moved his rook across, defending this pawn. It just feels like White loses a bit of momentum here. He should have spent that one move, that one tempo, going for the attack. Instead, now White's rook is doing a defensive job, White's queen is doing a defensive job. Anish Giri, this is his tendency. He'd rather keep things together sometimes rather than gamble. And will that come back to bite him? Maybe that'll be a small missed opportunity for him, especially with 40 seconds on the clock. I think he's getting nervous now. He had far stronger moves there.
Yeah, exactly. But 40 seconds, Anish Giri only has 40 seconds. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has just under 5 minutes. This is a big time difference. And I agree with you, David. I think that's why we're seeing him suddenly take a cautious approach, because he didn't see a clear way through the trees and instead just thought, OK, fine, I'll defend the pawn. Not much time left. But this is kind of an indicator of panic.
Mm-hmm. No, definite panic by Anish Giri. I think he just wanted to make a move, any move, and just quickly to make sure that he stays over 30 seconds. But maybe under that invisibility cloak, he needed someone just whispering to him, attack, 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 because he had the chance. But he is on, well, he did go slightly passive there.
Yeah, he does every player get 10 seconds for each move they make, but he's going to have to play very fast if he's going to build up a lot of time here.
Yeah, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave under 4 minutes now, and with a difficult position, but he does have a moment of respite here, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He's got a move or two to try and improve his forces.
Yeah.
Thanks to Anish Giri maybe not being as direct as he should have been.
Like, one move that I would be considering immediately would be just a way to trade off queens, because when your king is in huge danger, you need to trade off queens, because the queen is like the most powerful attacker there is. So I'm just thinking, if I move my queen, move the black queen all the way up the board opposite the white queen, and then I can maybe trade myself off and escape the danger, because this black king is a bad middle game king in the sense that it's vulnerable to attack, but it's a fantastic piece for an endgame because it's ready to get going into an attack and start munching pawns.
Yeah, this black king, if the queens leave the board, the black king is perfectly safe. Therefore, I think this is guaranteed that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave will find this move to try and trade these queens. This is his best chance of survival. If he leaves the queens on the board long term, white's queen and white's knight, they're the perfect attacking combo. Okay,
he
just
didn't.
as I said, it was guaranteed. He did not do this. He moved his bishop instead, and there we see the bar. The computer agrees that that was not the best move by black. The bishop is better than it has been the whole game. It's better than it could have dreamt of just 3 or 4 moves ago. But the black king is a bit open, and now white starts to improve his knight. The white knight coming to try and munch on a pawn. Therefore, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave decides, okay, now's the time. He's trying to exchange queens. He's begging for that queen trade.
Yeah.
And will Anish go for it? I guess that's what we're so excited to see now. Is Anish still fighting to get this win, or will he?
Well, he has 13 seconds to decide, and it's such a tricky
seconds,
and he's decided no.
Okay.
Wow.
He's kept the queens on the board, Anish Giri. That's what we like to see. He's learnt from his mistakes from the last tournament. He's keeping those queens on the board. But now black's king, it's been scurrying right, scurrying left, and now it scurries back towards the corner. I still like white's position. It's not easy, though, especially with 20 seconds. And therefore, Anish Giri decides to play a defensive move. That white rook steps up 1 square. He's defending a pawn now on the left, defending a pawn in the centre.
But I really don't like black's last move because, you know, Anish played it very safe. I love what Anish did because he liberated the queen, and now the queen can get going into the attack. And, yeah...
I think we've seen a blunder by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He just missed that last queen check. He basically gave Anish Giri a check for free, and Anish Giri, he's picked off a pawn. He's won a pawn. White has a big advantage here. All that Anish Giri has to do is make sure that the white king stays safe, and therefore he trades the queens. Now he does it after winning a pawn. Anish Giri, he should win this game. Black has 2 pawns under attack right now. White is a pawn ahead. Everything's in Anish Giri's favour apart from the clock.
Yes. Well, we have Dr. Dranovsky on Twitter who says, I really hope Giri converts this one. I am feeling happy for him. Yes, we also hope that Anish actually gets motoring. I mean, it's been a great game, but it would be very sad if Anish didn't actually turn this one around.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't win this game, at least he'll only have himself to blame. He's done a perfect job so far. It's just about his finishing technique. There we see black defends one of his pawns in the centre, but there's another pawn. The black pawn on that left side, it can be captured. White's knight can start snacking on pawns. White's going to have so many pawns pushing forward on that left flank. Okay, instead, Anish says, no, I'm not going to allow any tricks. I'm going to block your pawn with my rook. Note how all of white's pieces, all of white's pawns, they're on white squares. They're all on light squares, the opposite colour to black's bishop. Therefore, they can never, ever be captured. They can never be targeted.
Yeah.
That's nice strategic ideas there by Anish Giri. It's good practical play as well, especially when low on time. Put all your pieces on the opposite squares to your opponent's bishop.
Yeah, no, I just look at the Maxime Vachier-Lagrav's last move. He retreated the bishop, and the bishop, it was bad, and then it was suddenly became okay, and then suddenly it's gone back to being bad again. And it's just defending his own pawn.
4 seconds for Anish Giri there. 3.
Yeah, come on, just make a move. Come on. Okay.
He made a move with 1 second left on the clock.
Okay, Anish Giri is feeling confident now, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, Anish Giri, look at those white pawns. The white pawns is running up the board. Black's king, meanwhile, is also running. Black's king was attacking the white rook. This one, it is winning for white. White has 2 extra pawns, and not just any pawns. Those white pawns are extremely far advanced. They're going to get to the end of the board. One of them should become a queen, but Maxime Vachier-Lagrave as black, he's trying everything he can. He's trying every trick in the book. That black rook now attacking a white pawn. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he's clinging on for dear life. He's setting traps. He is the tricky Frenchman, but Anish Giri, he's now built up time. He's up to almost a minute again. He's improved his king. He's improved his pawns. Anish Giri should have this one in the bag now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there, David. The king is just going to run. And you can see that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is desperately pinning his hopes on this black pawn that he has. But White's connected past pawns, that duo, that's so powerful.
That's right. If we bring up the analysis board, these 2 pawns at the moment, they are going to decide the game. One of them will become a queen, but temporarily, black has blocked them. Black is controlling the advance of them with this bishop. So it's time for Anish Giri to decide, okay, do you try and get this pawn running as well, long term, or do you try and bring this rook behind to try and help you push these pawns? Okay, meanwhile, Anish Giri, I think he's getting nervous again. He just allowed the black pawn to push. Bit of a strange decision there. I think now is the moment. There's a bit of nerves jangling. Black is going to start trying to create that race. Black also has a strong pawn, remember. Black's going to try and bring his king into the position. Anish Giri, therefore, brings his knight back, keeping an eye on that black pawn. This is a critical moment. I think Anish Giri needs to find something a bit special in order to maintain his advantage. It is a big advantage. It's still a winning advantage for white. But for a human, it's not easy, especially with 50 seconds left on the clock.
Wow. What are we looking for from Anish now? What move are we looking for? We see the Stockfish suggestion. It is a huge advantage if he does that rook move.
Yes.
And he's done it. And he's done it. He's played it. Yes. He has given up his piece in order to clarify the situation and just bring his king and allow those pass pawns to start running.
Yeah, and black has a bishop right now. A bishop is normally worth 3 points, but white has 3 very strong pawns. So those 3 pawns are actually better than black's bishop right now. Black will have to give up his bishop for those pawns. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he's resigned. Early resignation. Maybe we'll explain that a bit later, but Anish Giri, important win.
Wow. Oh, I so wish we could see the invisible Anish Giri's face now. That was such an important win for him. He's back in it, Jovanka, now.
Yeah, he's definitely back in it. He still is in the danger zone, but still 1 more victory to go, and he might make it to the quarterfinals. So, yeah, definitely a step in the right direction. And for poor Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he needs to win the rest of his games.
Maxime Vachier-Lagrave now currently outside, still top 8. It's going to be tough for him now with only 2 rounds to go, David. Yeah,
Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, we kind of always think of him as one of the best speed players, one of the best rapid players in the world, but he's had a tough time. That game was very difficult for him. Anish Giri played fantastically, but yeah, MVL now needs to, well, he needs to throw everything at these next 2 games.
And you did mention at some point in this game that it seemed like Maxime blundered. I would love to actually see that on the analysis board. What happened there?
Yes, so Maxime, at some point, he looked like he was just getting back into the game. He was fighting back. His king was finally getting into safety, this black king. But now he made a huge mistake. Rather than sidestep again towards the corner, where he'd be very, very safe, he moved his king forward 1 square diagonally, allowing a check. There was just no reason to allow this check, and now black realised he had to lose a move. His king did have to step back. So black's basically given white this move for free with the queen, and it was time for Anish Giri to start gobbling pawns. Anish Giri won a pawn, which he shouldn't have won if Vachier-Lagrave had been a bit careful. Now as well, this queen is attacking 2 key pawns. So not only did Vachier-Lagrave lose a pawn, it was one of his most important pawns. And a couple of moves later, the queens came off. Anish Giri is about to win a 2nd pawn. 2 pawns are attacked. He can't do anything about that. And if we whiz ahead to the final position, the reason that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave resigned at the end here is because these pawns are simply unstoppable. If black tries to gobble up one of them, another one will push. This white pawn will push forward. It's about to become a queen. It's becoming a lady in the next move. So black has to give up his bishop for this pawn. And this endgame, king and pawn endgames, they are tricky. They're very difficult to understand sometimes. But essentially, white is going to run with this one forward. As soon as black steps across with his king to stop this pawn, to keep an eye on this pawn, white is going to go the other way with his king. This pawn will act as a distraction. Meanwhile, white will just step across slowly, gobble up this pawn, and eventually white will make another queen with his remaining pawn. Very deep stuff there, but Anish Giri saw it in advance, and difficult for Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. He suffered in that endgame.
Yeah, he definitely suffered there.
So tense in the preliminaries of the Airthings Masters with only 2 rounds to go, and this is the game that we will follow in the next round. Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, 2 big rivals. It's going to be so interesting. All right, it is getting so tense now. We know with a major, there's only 12 players, only 11 rounds of preliminaries. Some players are really falling behind here, Jovanka. What's the mood like, do you think, among the players now?
Well, I think those people who have secured the win, secured a place, like Hikaru Nakamura, he will be very confident. I think he will just look to play very rock solid. But the mood will be super important for those players who really need to win. There are 7 players who need to score 2 points out of 2, and they will be psyching themselves up, pumping themselves, listening to their favorite music, trying to get going, because, you know, everything is possible. Well, you know, and we'll see. We'll see what they come up with.
And we did see Hikaru Nakamura. He did get a win in that last game. We know he's now going to face Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen is not going to go easy on him and play for that draw, I guess.
No, that's right. Magnus knows that Hikaru later on in the tournament might be his biggest rival, so he will be trying to knock him down right now. Also, Magnus has the white pieces. He never lets anyone off the hook. He'll like to squeeze his opponents, to torture them. And if he can get a win, that'll be a huge psychological battle in their rivalry. All right.
It's getting very tense. There's only 2 rounds left in the preliminaries. 4 players will leave us and 8 players will go on to the quarterfinals. So I guess for some players who really need to get some wins now in the last rounds, maybe they should put on some of their motivational music.
Usually I like rock and pop. I mean, my favorite group is Marea, a Spanish group. It gets me more excited to go to the game.
The songs change at every tournament. This is sort of my ritual. So there's going to be one tournament, one song that I will obligatorily listen to just before going to the game.
Right now I'm listening to Bee Gees. I like in general pop songs, you know, like that. I mean, I know they're not the best songs, but they're very catchy. And I sometimes listen to rap too, like Eminem. Although he doesn't have the best songs either in terms of lyrics.
This playlist is called Momentum. So the last song in that respect was Atom from Crystal Fighters.
I'm not really like the man of the music and stuff. I just put sometimes some things, but especially mostly the rap things and so on, they get you in shape, especially if the mood is like so and you need to fight.
Timur Rajevo into the rap songs. We've talked about this before, Jovanka. You agree with Timur, don't you?
Yeah, you've got to have some rap songs, so, you know, some anger in there.
Wesley So also said that, didn't he? Eminem, you agree with that, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
And David, we know your motivational song.
That's right. It's a song from Mulan, I'll Make a Man Out of You. But sometimes I'm in more of a kind of Despacito mood. I like to get the moves good. Well, I'm not going to dance on the camera.
Oh, please do.
I like to get the blood pumping.
Get like the hips moving.
Exactly, the hips moving. You need that before games.
So is this the time now for players, if they need to get pumped up, to put on that motivational music with only 2 rounds to go?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, every victory counts here. 4 players will be eliminated. This is the moment where you do anything. You change into your lucky shirt, you have a cold shower, anything. Put on your motivational music and sit down and get ready with your mouse.
What do you think the players are doing now, David? A lot of the games lasted for quite a lot of time. They haven't had too much time to prepare for the next one. Or is that what it's all about?
Actually, I think if the players are sensible, if they're being practical, they won't be looking at too much chess in this break. It's going to be more about inspiration, more about who can deal with those really tense, emotional, dramatic moments better. And I think just staring at a chessboard now, their preparation should have been done earlier. It's all about getting fresh, getting focused.
I don't think we saw it in this game, but we did see yesterday the en passant. There are some special moves in chess, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And David, he's giving us some chess lessons, and today's theme is about those special moves.
There are some special moves in chess which go against the normal rules. You can normally only do these once a game. Castling involves the king and the rooks. If there is nothing between the king and the rooks, and if they haven't moved so far in the game, then the king can castle, which means moving the king across 2 squares, and the rook jumps over. This would be castling on the king side, and likewise, you can also castle on the other side. The king also goes 2 squares across, and the rook jumps over. You cannot castle if you're already in check though, and you cannot castle through check. I recommend doing this in every game. It keeps your king nice and safe. Another special move is en passant. This means when one side has a pawn on their 5th rank, if the opponent's pawn tries to move 2 squares to bypass it, it can actually be captured as if it just moved 1 square. En passant is one of the trickiest moves in chess, and it's also one of the newest additions to the rules. It only came into effect about 300 to 400 years ago. Promotion is a special move in chess. When your pawn gets to the end of the board, to your opponent's side, it can become a queen, a rook, a bishop, or a knight. So for example, you would push the pawn forward, you would replace it now with a queen. Yes.
There we have it.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen it. It turned out better than I thought it would. Hopefully that's useful for the people at home as well.
Definitely. The en passant, the castling. Well, we always talk about the castling, of course. And it's nice to get these chess lessons from you, David. I'm trying to learn.
Thank you. And also, actually, on the Champions Chess Tour website, there's now a new feature called Learn Chess. So if you're just getting to grips with the games, if you're just wanting to learn about en passant, about castling, about some of these other special moves, then go check it out. There's lots of some very, well, I think useful animations there.
Now, we are excited to see, after a while here, the standings after 9 rounds in the preliminaries. Only 2 rounds remain, but actually there is still a game going on, and that's why the standings isn't ready yet, because Alexander Grishock and Magnus Carlsen is still playing that 9th round game. But right now, before that is done, Hikaru Nakamura is in sole lead with 5.5 points. And right now, the players that are not qualified for the quarterfinals are Alexander Grishock, Pental Hari Krishna, Maxim Vachier-Legrave, and David Anton. So maybe that's why Alexander Grishock is staying in this game for so long. He knows he needs the win. And here we have the game between the two.
Yeah, and actually, it's Magnus Carlsen, as we've seen so many times, torturing his opponent. Magnus Carlsen, as black, has an extra pawn. Black has 2 pawns, white only has 1, and each side has a rook. This one, Magnus Carlsen, he's already been pushing for 30 moves in a very similar position, trying to win that last white pawn. But Alexander Grishock is defending resolutely. He's clinging on to dear life. He knows that as white, he needs to save this game to have a chance of qualifying for the knockouts.
All right. And they're just simply waiting for that draw, just trying to get the other person to blunder?
Yeah, more or less, that's what Magnus is doing. He's just making random moves. He's just slowly moving the rook one side of the board, another side, checking, making the Grishock play awkward moves. And it's just about trying to catch Grishock with basically a blunder, just hoping that he will crack.
That's right. With best play, I think with ideal play, this should be a draw, but there's so many traps, so many tricks. Look at Black's king deep in the enemy camp. Black's king as well is very close to that white pawn. White's rook has to stay passive defending it. This one is very difficult for Grishock to defend. It should be a draw, but Magnus, he will try and squeeze water from a stone. We've seen it. We've seen him do it before against Daniel Dubov, winning a pawn up, even though the game should be a draw. Magnus Carlsen, he loves these scenarios where there's no risk, and he can just slowly put the pressure on his opponent.
All right. Well, it's typical Magnus, isn't it? To just try just a little bit longer and everyone else would just be, this is a draw.
Yeah, because I think he's got such a strong nervous constitution that he can handle this type of thing. And his opponents are not, actually, to be honest, his opponents are not used to being tested in this way as well, because I know most people would have perhaps packed up and said a draw many, many moves ago. But yeah, Magnus carrying on.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Wesley So's watching this game as well, just learning from this perseverance. That's what separates Magnus Carlsen from the rest. That's why he's the world champion. He pushes every advantage. He takes every chance he gets. Here, he's played with, I mean, we're almost on move 100. Wesley So takes all these draws after 10 moves. I mean, I'd love to see a tiebreaker, for example, with number of moves played. Magnus Carlsen racking up the moves, giving us all the entertainment we can ask for. Yeah, love to see it.
Yeah. And but do you think Grishock can hold the draw?
So Grishock, he needs to cling on actually not much longer now. The last pawn move, the last capture was on move 53, and there's a rule in chess that after 50 moves without a capture or a pawn move, the game is declared drawn. So 7 more moves Grishock needs to survive just to secure the draw here. Magnus Carlsen, he has only 7 moves left to win White's remaining pawn, or he needs to trade a set of pawns in the next 7 moves. Otherwise, the game will immediately be declared drawn.
And Alexander Grishock, he's only 21 seconds on the clock. This is what we're used to with Alexander Grishock, right? It seems like he goes from 15 minutes to just less than a minute in 2 minutes.
He's probably been playing with 20 seconds on the clock for the last 90 moves. Yeah, that's classic Grishock.
And that must mean that he is, during the game, taking some really long pauses to think. What is it like to playing against him?
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've played against him, and it's intimidating. He's having these long thinks sometimes in the opening, and you just know he's coming up with a deep concept. That being said, if you can survive into the endgame, survive till later in the game against him, you will get a chance or two. He won't play perfect chess every time because he's always low on the clock, and maybe that's just what's held him back from becoming world champion himself.
Yeah, because he is one of the more experienced guys in the game here, the experienced Russian Alexander Grishock, and played Magnus so many times, I guess.
Yeah,
he has,
beaten Magnus many times as well.
And of course, you have to remember he was 3-time World Blitz champion, so he's a super ferocious, dangerous player. But here, I think he can hold the draw. He's also pretty used to playing with no time on the clock. And you can just look at both those players there, super focused. There's no nerves whatsoever in Grishock's face.
Yeah, and just above the board there, above the bar, above the players, we see the move number. We're on move 99 now.
That's 4 moves without a trade or a capture, and then...
Yeah, if nothing happens, if there are no trades, captures before move 103, the game is immediately a draw. They will have played 50 moves without anything happening. Well, without any pieces leaving the board. So we're getting closer. Only 3 more moves left after this one by Magnus Carlsen.
Move 99, but they don't have 99 problems. Seems quite easy, doesn't it? And there we are, move 100.
Move 100.
3 more moves.
Yeah, and another player in this tournament, Hare Krishna. I mentioned this yesterday. I once played a game against him which lasted 236 moves. So that was a long one.
We should also mention that usually all the games start at top of the hour, but obviously this game is still going on, so it will be a 10-minute break for both of these players before they start their round number 10.
And Magnus Carlsen, once again, trying to win that white pawn, but he's only got 2 moves left to win that white pawn. Imagine how depressing it will be. He gets so close, he's only 1 move away from winning it, and then suddenly the game is a draw with the 50-move rule. But yeah, Alexander Grishock defending perfectly. Black's problem is, if he does capture the white pawn, which he might well do, then he will also lose one of his own pawns. We might actually see that happen. I think it will happen right now. Magnus Carlsen on move 103. He did capture that pawn. So we've got another 50 moves left at least. Magnus, he will have known that that would be the drawing move, that he was about to hit the time limit, well, about to hit the move limit for a draw. So that's why he made that capture.
Does that then automatically happen on the computer? The computer just said, oh, now it's a draw. You didn't.
Yes. With online chess, that's exactly what happens. Every time you repeat the position 3 times, this little bar comes up and goes, whoop, you finished. The game is being repeated 3 times. All the same here with the 50-move rule. And over the board chess, it's a little bit more complicated. You have to actually keep note. You have to claim in a special way. And so that's one of the many things why I like online chess.
Yeah, I've actually played one of the world's top 10 players, and he misclaimed against me. He thought it was 50 moves, but he'd miscounted. Unfortunately, it was 50 moves a few moves later. But yeah, it's tricky keeping a note when you write down the moves. But that's another beauty of online chess. It's automatically done for you.
So they are still sitting here playing, and everyone, you are saying, the computer's saying, this is just a dead draw. Does the players, and I'll ask you as well, David, it's sometimes annoying with Magnus that he just doesn't give up when everyone's like, come on, it's a draw.
I mean, as a chess fan, I love to see him try and squeeze out these small advantages. Sometimes it does work, and sometimes he does win. When you're playing against him, though, it's just torture. I mean, he is a sadist. He likes to see the opponent suffer. But here we do see the reason it is a draw, despite Black's extra pawn, is that that pawn will not get to its goal. White's king will start blocking that pawn, and the rooks will just balance each other out. So I would expect to see here, for example, White's king, shuffle across to the corner. Black is very close to giving checkmate. If Black's rook could somehow swing round to give check on the bottom rank there on the bottom row, that would be checkmate. But as soon as Black's rook, leaves the same line as its king, White will start giving check from behind. So there's just no way to make progress here.
And still, he is trying Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, I don't think he'll try for much longer, and there you see it. Do you think Grishock will have a sense of humour and throw in a check?
So, Grishock here, he could capture that that black pawn with his rook right now, and that would be an immediate draw. Or, as Jovanka wants to show, he could have forced a stalemate. But okay, instead we'll see king versus king and a draw.
It is a draw after, 1 hour and 5 minutes that game lasted. Wow, and they're both sitting there looking at the... I guess Magnus is disappointed. Sitting here for this long, it must mean he really was going for the win in this game.
Yeah, he certainly did try his luck, and he pushed it as far as he can go. And I for one, I really like to see this happen, actually. I really like to see top grandmasters being put under pressure. And Magnus Carlsen gives us hope that absolutely everyone can go wrong. So I just love that he did this.
And they do now have 10 minutes before they start their next round, round 10, which means there's only 2 rounds left now. And Magnus, well, he's quite comfortable on the table now, but it is actually Hikaru Nakamura in sole lead, and Hikaru Nakamura is the next player that Magnus Carlsen will face. What do you think he's thinking about sitting here now? Is it what just happened, or is it looking forward to what's going to happen?
Well, we saw Nakamura earlier laughing in his chair. I reckon he would have been laughing while watching that one too. But now it's time to get focused again. And Black against Magnus Carlsen, it's the hardest pairing. It's the hardest game in chess. Nakamura, he'll have spent a bit of that time just relaxing, but also a bit of time preparing, thinking about what opening he's going for, what strategy he's going for.
All right, so it is finally time to look at the results from round 9. And we did have quite a few wins. Anish Giri, as we saw, he beat Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, such an important win for the Dutchman. And then also Hikaru Nakamura, he got a win against David Anton, meaning that David Anton, most likely or almost 100% certain, is out of the Airthings Masters. Levon Aronian, Pentla Harikrishna, that was a draw. Jan Nepomniachtchi beat his fellow Russian Danil Dubov, very interesting game there. And then Alexander Grishock, Magnus Carlsen, after 1 hour and 5 minutes, played to a draw. And Wesley So and Timur Rajabov, on the other hand, after only 4 minutes, played to a draw. So that means Wesley So had a very long time to think. Now, okay, we are getting ready for round 9. It's time to shake it off. The players are playing fantastic chess. I'm not a great chess player, but I am learning, and you can watch me as I try to get a little bit better. We are doing pins now. I did have a little bit of trouble with the double attack, so pinning. I like that better. Oh, it's pinning the rook. Ah, okay. Yay. Well, pinning. I'm doing good with the pinning. Cross pin. Okay. Okay. Yes, because if I move it here, well, he cannot take, because I will just go for the black rook. Yes. Okay. Pinning is my thing in chess. Pinning, I love it. So how about if I move my rook here? She cannot move. It must be this move, because the queen cannot move. I will just take your rook. And now, oh my gosh. I see it. Okay, I'm not even going to comment on that. Wow. Okay. Well, I found it after a while. It was staring right into my face. I could obviously just take the queen. Well, actually, I think I did good with the pinning. Only that one, very embarrassing, not seeing the pawn could take the queen. All right. I've actually just been dreading showing you guys this one because they were quite nice to me when editing this. I spent like a minute before I saw that I could just take that queen. Isn't that just typical with beginners? We just don't see the obvious moves, maybe.
To start off with, yes, it does take a little bit of time, but once you see the pattern maybe 3 times, that's it. It's there in your brain and you won't forget it.
Yeah, we always say look for checks and captures first in every position. Now I
definitely learned that.
Yeah, you'll never forget to always look for those captures.
All right.
You did well though, Kaya.
Oh, thank you. Again, they are quite nice to me when editing this. I'm spending a lot of time and I get so stressed with the clock. I can definitely see why playing fast, rapid chess and blitz chess is so much harder. It's just so much easier to forget things.
Yeah, definitely. When the heart is racing, it's hard for the brain to work properly.
Yeah.
Have you found it useful, the Chessable Challenge?
I definitely have. I definitely am learning. And pins and forks, I think those maybe are my favorite, to actually look for the pins and fork.
Yeah. Pinning is winning.
Pinning is winning. Just remember those little expressions. But I'm pretty sure that now you know about it. Now you know it.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'm learning chess. The players in there, Airthings Masters, they are playing fantastic chess. I think they are. I think today is so much more interesting. They're actually going for those wins.
Yeah, they're playing very adventurous chess. I mean, it's just what we came here to see. We wanted to see blood, we wanted to see adventure, we want to see attacks, and we've been rewarded with some decisive games, and that's just brilliant.
Definitely. And it's time to actually look at the standings after 9 rounds with 2 rounds to go. And we now see Hikaru Nakamura is in sole lead with 5.5 points. And then we have 5 players on 5 points, 2 players on 4.5 points. And then we see the bottom form that right now are not qualified for the quarterfinals: Anish Giri, Pentla Harikrishna, Maxim Vasylegrov, and David Anton. Okay, who needs to start fighting now, David? Who are you excited to keep an eye on?
I think Maxim Vasylegrov now and Anish Giri, Pentla Harikrishna as well. All of them need to win. Unfortunately, David Anton at the bottom is probably out now, but the others, Maxim Vasylegrov, he needs to win both of his games and hope that the tiebreaks favour him. Anish Giri, probably with his great tiebreak scores, his number of wins, another win will be enough to launch him into those top 8 places. Harikrishna as well needs to win this next game against Wesley So.
What do you think the players on 5 points there are thinking, and what is their mentality like now, Jovanka?
I think the players on 5 points cannot either. They can't rest as well because they have one bad result and that's it. They're already down in the danger zone. So they need to play solid. They need to take it easy and they need to be consistent. But it's really all about those players at the bottom, whether they can whip up those whirlwind attacks.
All right, well, it is time to look at the games that will be played in round number 10. We have Maxim Vasylegrov. Jovanka mentioned the players in bottom, they need to win, and Maxim Vasylegrov is one of those players. He is facing Timur Rajabov. David, do you think Maxim Vasylegrov will just, with white pieces there, go for that win?
Yeah, I think it's now or never for Maxim, and with white, he's extremely good. I think he'll gamble everything on this game.
And then we have in the next game, it's Pentla Harikrishna. He is facing Wesley So. Pentla Harikrishna needs a win. Do you think Wesley So will just take this to a draw immediately?
Well, it's going to be like the immovable energy faces. Well, no, how does it go again? But
the unstoppable force.
Unstoppable force against the immovable object. That's what I'm expecting from those. I think Wesley will be ultra solid. And I feel a bit sorry for Harikrishna because he had the white pieces against someone, and it is Wesley, and Wesley has been the most solid player in the tournament so far, so he seems unbeatable.
Definitely does. And then in the next game, a player that hasn't been unbeatable, Daniil Dubov. He just lost against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and now he's facing Levon Aronian, who seemed so focused and so solid, David.
Yeah, that's such a tough pairing. Imagine coming off a loss. You want things to be easier, and you're playing Levon Aronian. Dubov, he can't lose again with white. It's tough for him. Does he go for the win and risk everything, risk dropping out of those qualification places? Does he try and beg for a draw and hope that he survives in the final round as well? He's in a tough situation.
Next game is David Anton. He is playing against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and David Anton most likely or definitely is out of the competition. Jovanka, what will this game look like?
Well, I think David Anton has nothing to lose. He knows he's out, so he might as well have fun and enjoy the game and just throw the kitchen sink at Nepomniachtchi.
And then we have the next game is between Anish Giri and Alexander Grishock. Giri also getting a long pause here because Grishock's game lasted for so long. Giri won his last game. Has the turning point come for Anish Giri now, David?
It might well have done, and he's got the white pieces again for the second game in a row. This is the moment he needs. He's just like Maxi Vassilgraf. He's going to gamble everything on this game. We've heard Anish Giri say it before. He's feeling good, feeling confident. He's going to go for the win.
And then the game that we will follow, obviously, because it is the game between the two big rivals, Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus Carlsen played such a long game now, David. Hikaru Nakamura, he's coming from a win. He is in sole lead. Is Magnus Carlsen, is this the game he's been looking for, the one he really wants to win?
I think he'll just try and put one over his old rival. We see there the stat. This is just speed chess. This is just rapid and blitz chess. They've played each other so many times. Imagine with classical as well, that's hundreds of times they've played each other. Magnus Carlsen is in the ascendancy. He's scored many more wins than Nakamura, but he'll try and do that again. He's got the white pieces.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready for round number 10 of 11. It is getting so tense. So many players need to fight for wins to actually qualify for the quarterfinals. 5 players will leave us after today. 8 will go on to quarterfinals. And it is Magnus Carlsen versus his big rival, Hikaru Nakamura, in this game. I'm really looking forward to this one. I actually saw this game coming from before we started. This is one game that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, this would be a dream final, let alone a preliminary round game. And yeah, Magnus Carlsen, he has opened with his king's pawn. Nakamura as black replying. We do see an opening that we call the Spanish. We've seen it many times before in this tournament. Okay, Nakamura playing an opening called the Berlin Wall, the Berlin Defense. It's because it's so solid as black. As black, you're just aiming for the draw maybe. With white, it's hard to break down this Berlin Wall. It's hard to create many winning chances. So very solid start by both players. We do see a pair of pawns have left the board, and now a set of knights have left the board. White's rook there in the middle of the board. It will be forced to retreat sooner rather than later. Black's knight heading to the back rank. Very balanced so far. A symmetrical pawn structure almost. Same complement of pieces as well remaining. Magnus taking a pause here. Okay, he retreats his rook. We have seen Magnus Carlsen play this before in the Champions Chess Tour to make a draw as white against Wesley. So my only concern with this start, with this opening, is that we might see things fizzle out quite quickly. Nakamura looks very calm. Meanwhile, he's seen this all before. He's going to wait and decide.
In fact, the two players are actually repeating a line that they played against themselves in 2019. So here we go, bishop f4. Bishop moves out, and yes. So in that game, Hikaru offered a trade of dark squared bishops.
That's right, and I've actually had this position myself before as white, only once. But it was against the artificial intelligence program AlphaZero, and I used this opening as white to make a draw. It's foolproof. You give black no winning chances. It's completely balanced, no risk at all. That being said, it's not very ambitious either. It's hard to create winning chances as white. So it does look like Magnus Carlsen in this game is probably just happy to get one step closer to qualification.
Well, we have a new move, though, with that queen coming out. That is new. There's only ever been played once before. So there's been some change. I don't think I agree with you. I think Magnus hasn't chosen the most aggressive line.
To say the least, yes.
But okay, you know, perhaps he's saying, look, I can play anything here.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe some mind games going on as well. They've repeated for 12 moves. They've repeated pretty much the same opening they've played before. Now Magnus Carlsen playing something a bit different, asking Hikaru Nakamura, have you done your homework? Have you looked at this move, this new move? With his last move, white is bringing his queen out and defending the bishop in front of it. I do expect to see a trade of bishops, though. Nakamura has a lot of choice here. Yeah, I think very balanced so far.
Slow start for the two rivals. Hikaru Nakamura coming from a win in his last game, and he obviously is feeling very confident that he will qualify now with 5.5 points.
Yeah, even with a couple of losses, he probably will still make it. That being said, of course, he doesn't want to lose a game against his big rival, lose a bit of face there. Yeah, these guys, they're very proud and they want to squeeze every point that they can.
Well, one thing we have to say, kind of mention is that the placings in the preliminaries actually affect whether you have whether you can choose white or black in the Armageddon games if it gets that far. So there is, and you also get to choose the colours that you start off with. So there's like some small advantages. I think I agree with you though. I do think that Magnus will definitely try for something. Just for the kind of moral victory, he can't let he can't live. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it not only determines who can choose the Armageddon colours, so the colours in the tiebreak games. It also chooses. It also determines the seeding. So whoever finishes in first place in these preliminaries, they'll play whoever finishes in 8th place. So you might get a slightly easier pairing in the quarterfinals if you top the table in this preliminary stage. So at the moment, that's Nakamura. He's at the top of the table and he will be very happy with the draw here. That's why he's trying to trade off pieces. We see a pair of bishops leave the board there. I think Nakamura, he'll either improve his knight right now or he might offer a trade of queens. He does offer a trade of queens. Magnus Carlsen with a big decision here. Do you run away with your queen or do you allow the swap?
If he allows the swap, is that a clear sign that Magnus actually also is happy with the draw here?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But it still is very exciting to watch these two great legends play chess. And we have a tweet from Chad who says, nothing like getting up on the first day of holiday time off and watching Magnus versus Hikaru. Exciting.
Definitely. Well, let's see then. It is exciting now to keep an eye on that white queen. Will it trade itself off or is he going to fight here?
Yeah, big moment. Let's hope that Chad is blessed with a long fighting game. I'm not overly optimistic, unfortunately. I do think Magnus will be tempted. Okay, he does keep the queens on the board.
He's kept the queens on the board. And so there is some choice for some life. The only thing that concerns me is that the structure of the pawns is a little bit too symmetrical for my taste. You know, it's difficult to kind of get an advantage when the position is so simple like this. And now Hikaru has developed the bishop to attack the queen, and the queen has sidestepped. So now it's Magnus offering a trade.
Yeah, so Magnus, he avoided those queens coming off the board just 2 moves ago. Now he's saying, OK, you proved yourself. Now we can trade queens. And the problem right now is that, as Jovanka mentioned, all of the pawns, I mean, the pawns have just been playing copycat. They're all completely balanced. There's no chance of creating a pass pawn. That's one way to win the game when you can't go for checkmate, to get a pawn to the end of the board, make a new queen. That would just not happen in this game. All the pawns are pretty much blocked. We do see White have a set of doubled pawns now. That last capture, White recaptured the queen. White's pawns are doubled on that G line. We see the G below the board. Those pawns are doubled, but they're not a big weakness. White's 3 pawns on the right side. They do defend each other right now.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Airthings stats. We can see once again, everything is quite perfect for Magnus Carlsen, except the temperature is too high. What a lovely...
Such a hard life when you're in a warm country and temperature's just too high.
Yeah, we're not feeling sorry for him, are we?
No, we are not, no.
And we don't actually, we can't see the air quality for Hikaru Nakamura. We know, though, that he's not sitting at home, is he? He had to switch locations right before the start of the tournament.
That's right. Just on the eve of the tournament, there was a bit of a last-minute dilemma. The facility, his office space, the whole building had to be evacuated. There was a COVID scare. He had to set up everything last minute at home. And he's playing from an unfamiliar location. So it hasn't affected him, though. He's doing well so far in this tournament.
Definitely. Maybe this should be his new facility for playing. We do have a lot of moves.
That's right. And unfortunately, no key moves. The queens have been traded. We do see the rooks in the middle there. There's one open line in the position, and those rooks are staring at each other. We're likely to see those rooks leave the board a bit later on. Meanwhile, Magnus Carlsen bringing his king closer to the centre. And if anyone, I would slightly prefer to be White. White's pawns are slightly further advanced on that right side. It means he has a tiny bit more space. Normally, space isn't such an issue when lots of pieces are leaving the board. You want your pawns further advanced forward if you have lots of pieces. It gives them more room to maneuver behind those pawns. Here, all the pieces are leaving the board. And actually, Magnus Carlsen's last move, I thought he was going to trade rooks, but no, he brings his rook across 2 squares.
Yes.
Bit of a mysterious one.
Well, one thing that we have seen from Magnus's games is that he's been an endgame virtuoso. He's managed to magic all sorts of winning positions from what seemingly looked like thin air. So do you think he can do it? And in fact, this is a question to everyone at home. You can tweet the response on using the hashtag #ChessChamps. Do you think Magnus can manage to win this game and put Hikaru in his place?
Yeah, I'm not a betting man, but I'm not sure what I would say here. You're right, Magnus, he almost squeezed that one out against Alexander Grishock. He almost got the win there. He did win yesterday against Daniel Dubov in a very tense endgame.
Yeah.
That'll be a huge victory today if he does manage it. And we do see, I mentioned that space. He's just trying to push his pawns forward. Maybe if all the pieces leave the board, having your pawns further advance forward, it might help in a race to dart towards the end of the board and making you queen.
Because one of the things that I know about this type of position is that the energy, so when you have lots of central tension with pawns or so in the center, there's lots of energy in there. But once that energy has gone, exactly like in this position, when the pawns are not in conflict with each other, everything has to divert to the wings, and it becomes a story about who can take the most space, who can put their pieces in the better squares. And you can actually see with this last 2 moves that Magnus has got a knight right in Hikaru's side of the board. So it's there, it's in a good spot, and this mysterious rook can perhaps have some use.
Yeah, Nakamura, meanwhile, retreating his bishop to its start square. That's a very passive move. He's basically saying to Magnus, okay, I'm solid. The onus is on you to try and move forward and beat me. And actually, Magnus's last move, he is playing for the win. He is going to try and get the advantage here. This last move with the white pawn, he's supporting an advance of the other pawn. So, for example, if black just moves his king towards the center, white is going to push forward. He's going to try and open things up for his rook along this line. If we do see some trades, then maybe the fact that white's advanced pawn, maybe just the fact that it's so far into the enemy position, it's in black's half now, maybe this will be a big factor. Later, it will try and dart towards its promotion square. I just think if Magnus Carlsen plays this move, next turn, we will see things start to liven up and he will be going for the win. He's also 3 minutes up on the clock.
Yeah. Okay, interesting to see if that move will appear. And we did see the bar shift. It's not any crisis for Hikaru Nakamura, but it does say 0.6 for Magnus Carlsen. And is this suddenly a lot more interesting than just a few moves ago?
Yeah, I think it's but the position by itself is probably quite solid and quite safe. But it's just the attitude of the players that we know that they're going to fight it out. And that kind of makes it a little bit more exciting because this is what we want to see. We want to see these small little plans that Magnus has, just to cause Hikaru some problems. And I really like watching this type of chess because it's very, very intelligent, very subtle. And when you see it done, and then you can kind of like retrospectively apply logic to it, it becomes like, oh, yeah. So that's how you get good at endgames.
Yeah, and talking of retrospectively looking at things, I just feel over the last 5-6 moves, white has improved his position. He's pushed his pawn up the board. He's now preparing another pawn advance. The white king is slightly more centralized than the black king. Magnus, he's been playing with a plan over the last 5-6 moves. It feels like Nakamura, he's just been moving his pieces around, not necessarily improving them. The black king is still in the corner, not really doing too much. It feels like Nakamura maybe relaxed a bit too early. He thought Magnus just wanted to draw with this opening. Nakamura, he relaxed. Suddenly, that's why he's thinking there. That's why he had a long think. He realized, okay, I can't just sit here and do nothing. Magnus will try and beat me.
And we see it on the clock as well. After 27 moves, Magnus Carlsen had more time on his clock than when he started. Hikaru Nakamura has spent some time. Okay, what's happening?
Yeah, and Magnus has played that move we were hoping for. Things are going to liven up. A set of pawns will be traded in the middle. And suddenly, I love white's position. He's aiming to remove black's most central pawn, just so he has a bit more control over the center.
Yeah, I can see you liking this position, David, because whenever I see pawns that dominate your opponent's pieces, I think of David. I remember David saying the pawns should be dominating their pieces. So just look at that pawn on the right side of the board, the furthest one that's advanced. It's kind of controlling Black's bishop that lies all the way on the left side of the board. That bishop really can't move to many places. And now there's conflict in the center as well. So Hikaru always has to be thinking about that conflict there. And yeah, there's just so much purpose in Magnus's position.
That's right, especially that white knight as well. As Jovanka mentions, that black bishop is just dominated. And meanwhile, Hikaru kind of frowned a bit there. It doesn't look like he's entirely happy with his position. He knows he's not losing. Black is still extremely solid. Still the same number of pieces, still roughly balanced, but Magnus is the one putting the pressure on. And that's why we're seeing Hikaru Nakamura normally so quick and confident. He is burning time on the clock now.
Could that become a big factor here now, actually, that Hikaru is just spending so much time?
Quite possibly. It is quite simple. I mean, the position is simplified. Queens have left the board. Lots of other pieces have left the board. So the clock won't be the decisive factor. But if he starts ticking down under 5 minutes, if he's still under a bit of kind of strategic pressure from Magnus Carlsen, if Magnus is still setting those traps, improving his pieces, Hikaru, he'll start to feel slightly more nervous, and that could build up. I've been there many times when these top players, these top 10 players, they apply the pressure, and it's never fun.
Well, one of the things that must be also disconcerting when it comes to the clock is that Magnus has actually got more time now than when he started. And there's a little bit of pride there, and you kind of can get a little bit embarrassed by the fact that your opponent is just blitzing out the moves and is able to get a good position like that.
Yeah.
Actually, around 10 years ago, I played Hikaru Nakamura, and I was black. He played 42 moves. This is a long game, a classical game, so we each had about 2 hours for the first 40 moves, then we'd gain another hour. He played the first 42 moves instantly. He didn't pause to think at all.
Wow.
And he told me afterwards he studied that exact position at home after 42 moves. And because after move 40, we gain an extra hour on the clock, he'd actually had nearly 3 hours on his clock left. And meanwhile, I was still 1 minute just trying to survive. Yes.
How did it end?
I managed to draw, but
Ooh.
it was a miracle. It was by the skin of my teeth. I had to sacrifice my queen to build a fortress. But yeah, that's how well prepared these players are, how confident they can be. And talking of confidence, Nakamura, he's pushing a pawn forward. He's traded off a set of pawns on that right side now. He's trying as well to get those bishops off. Yeah, that's a very confident move by Nakamura. I would have hesitated. I would have thought, oh, maybe I'm creating weaknesses. But he's not afraid to go for it. And he knows that if bishops leave the board, he'll be inching closer to that desired result to get the draw.
Mm-hmm.
So what is Magnus's plan here? Because you're saying it's sort of the feeling that maybe he is playing for the win here now. What could be his plan?
Yeah, so if we bring up the board, we can see the two things Magnus Carlsen is considering here. He's debating, does he exchange these bishops? Does he allow the bishops to leave the board? But suddenly, maybe his central pawns will become a bit weak. Black's knight attacking this undefended pawn right now. The other thing Magnus Carlsen is considering is keeping these bishops. Does he retreat his bishop? It might look like a passive square, this white bishop doing not much right now, but he's keeping pieces on the board, and having more pieces on the board favors you if you have more space. And the reason white has more space is his pawns are slightly further advanced.
Well, he's done that. He's retreated his bishop, but he's retreated it one square. And Hikaru responded immediately by advancing the pawn on the right side of the board. And it's all very tense here because I think he did that to stop white from taking even more space with that pawn on the right side. So, yeah.
Yeah, you see the players, again, when in doubt, they're just slowly edging forward. Black's pawn taking more space, but also inching towards its promotion square. If that black pawn on the right there, if it does get to the end, it will make a new queen. Magnus, he won't allow that. But one thing I've learned about endgames, especially when knights are on the board, knights struggle against these corner pawns. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine the bishops leaving the board, the rooks leaving the board, the fact that Hikaru Nakamura, he's starting to push his corner pawn, that might be a big factor later on.
Yeah, and one thing that I've kind of realised about these endings is that you should never rush with your plan, you know, because yes, white has a plan of just maybe advancing the pawn on the right side, two squares forward just to attack the bishop, but you shouldn't really do that. You should just kind of keep your options open, keep your opponent guessing as to what you're going to do, and keep those things in reserve. And Magnus has actually retreated his knight. You know, maybe he's going to manoeuvre it to a better square.
Yeah, I think that's his plan. Magnus Carlsen now, he's brought his knight back. He stepped it back, but that's only because he wants to step forward on the next move. So Magnus Carlsen, if we bring up the board, he wants to plant this knight into the center, potentially. This knight will be very, very strong. Jovanka calls it an octo knight. It will control 8 important squares from the center of the board. So also, this square would be anchored by white's pawn in the middle. I think this would be his ideal scenario. Maybe black can prevent that by trading off a bishop for a knight. But in this type of scenario, it's never clear whose is better, the knight or the bishop. I like the bishop because there are pawns on both sides of the board and bishops are long-range pieces. Knights take longer to control both sides. But this would lead to some imbalances, and knights are very tricky. They can jump around, they can attack things, especially in these speed games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I prefer the rook and the bishop together because they're just like the perfect combo. The rook and the knight, maybe not so good. And also, I love the fact that the bishop can work on 2 different flanks. You can work on the left side and the right side. Such a long-range piece. Love it. And definitely, that's a decision that Hikaru has to think really hard about whether to take. You know, to take that knight or not. I mean, I would be hesitant because you're, like you just said, you know, you kind of change the advantage of one position into another type of thing.
Yeah, it's something new to worry about, right? And actually, we see Hikaru leaning forward and really studying this position. He's now 5 minutes below on the clock, and he's got a difficult choice to make. That's one of Magnus Carlsen's strengths, I've realised. I've played against him. Actually, during this lockdown in recent months, I've played against him so much online on Blitz chess, and he always gives you options. You always have 4 or 5 different moves to consider, and often they're actually roughly the same in terms of evaluation, but you burn so much time on the clock just wondering which one do you go for, and that's a very good psychological ploy by Magnus, that last move. Hikaru, meanwhile, he's not feeling confident. He's not yet captured that knight. He might leave that knight on the board. Okay, he just retreats his bishop instead. I think a solid move, but it did cost him a lot of time.
It did cost him a lot of time, you know, and with these guys, so good, you know, I have to say that I agree with you that it's such a difficult decision to make. You know, I would have hesitated for a long time and perhaps not done it. as well. And retreating the bishop does look very passive. Maybe I would have waited with that. But these guys are geniuses. And we have a wonderful tweet from Roham Hosseini who says, a few years ago, I thought watching chess post-midnight was boring. Then I started watching Hikaru and Magnus calculating moves and their genius in action. I learn new things every game in chess champs competitions.
Yeah. I wonder how old Roham is. Hopefully he's not staying up past his bedtime to watch these games. But he is right, though. These players, they calculate moves so quickly. The reason Black retreated his bishop there is to clear that same square for the Black Knight. A very sophisticated, a very deep move by Nakamura. Both players, we know, they are retreating, but there's always a reason for that retreat. In general, in chess, you want to push forward. But sometimes if you do take a step back, there has to be a reason for that and a plan behind it.
All right, we see the tweets coming in, and we do have that Twitter quiz or the question of the day, Jovanka.
Yeah, because we've gotten to know so many animals during this chess tour. So we decided, yeah, why not? What is the best chess-inspired name for a pet? And, of course, tweet us your answers on Chess Champs. And also, if you want to send pictures, please use Instagram, and you can, again, use the hashtag ChessChamps.
I actually did see someone post a picture on Twitter of his dog, and it seems his dog's name is Stalemate. That's a good chess-inspired pet name.
I've never thought of that one.
No.
I once saw a cartoon where it was talking about bread, and then it said, "Oh, that bread looks like it's going stale, mate."
Chess humor.
Chess humor. Yeah, that's right.
That's like that joke. You haven't had that joke about this. Oh, I don't know whether I should tell a joke live on air.
Oh, come on.
Don't mess up the punchline. No pressure.
Well, a man gets. A man goes into his department store, puts a pocket chess set in his pocket, and the security guard taps him on the shoulder and goes, "Oi, how are you going to pay for that?" And the guy goes, "By check, mate."
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Exactly.
But actually, I mean, I've never had a pet, so if any of these names are especially good, I'll consider naming my first pet after the winner's answer.
There we are.
What pet would you have?
Oof, tough question.
Dogman or Catman?
I love them both, but I'm slightly allergic to cats. So it has to be the dog.
Has to be the dog. All right. I think we do have a suggestion here on the screen, actually. Meowness. That's a very good meow. Did I say that right?
That's a suggestion from Derek, aged 6.
Oh, fantastic. That makes it even better. Meowness. I love it.
Magnus Carlsen.
Magnus Carlsen, yeah. Thank you very much, Werner, or Derek, should I say.
Derek.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Magnus Carlsen, he spent a long time on that last move. He spent 3 or 4 minutes, and he did relocate the White Knight. And likewise, Hikaru Nakamura improving the Black Knight. That Black Knight now is actually hitting a central pawn. That pawn was undefended. Therefore, Magnus Carlsen has advanced that pawn. Magnus, he's decided this is the moment. He's trying to push forward. Those White's pawns are much further advanced than their counterparts. White is trying to create a passed pawn, which will potentially be difficult to stop. Hikaru Nakamura, big decision right now. Does he trade pawns in the center of the board, or does he push forward and allow Magnus Carlsen to create that very strong protected pass pawn?
All right, interesting. And then we actually do see 2 games have finished. Pentala Harikrishna and Wesley So Jovanka. Can you believe it? It ended in a draw.
Oh, but this is bad news for Pentala Harikrishna. You know, he's in a must-win situation for the last round, and even then, it's not certain.
And then we also see David Anton and Jan Pomniachtchi play the draw, so it's all over for David Anton as well, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunate. It's a bit of a it's a bit of a shame that he perhaps wanted a little bit more, because he started so well in the Skilling Open. I think he raced to the lead, and here it just wasn't his tournament.
Just wasn't his tournament. Now, this game you've been saying for a long time, it did look like a draw. What's your bet right now?
Ooh, this one is so hard to call. Chances are still balanced. With best play, it should still be a draw, simply because so many pieces have been traded, so many pawns. But I still have a feeling there are some kind of twists and turns ahead. And there we see a very controversial decision by Hikaru Nakamura. It's one that has long-term consequences. If we bring up the analysis board, we can see what's just happened. Actually, the key moment was probably just 2 moves ago. Magnus Carlsen pushing this pawn forward 1 square. He is attacking a pawn. Nakamura had to decide, does he trade or does he step forward? If he'd captured, White would create a pass pawn. This pawn is ready to race through to the end of the board. It has no rival. Also, White would be attacking a bishop with his rook. This rook would be given an open line. Therefore, he decided to block it up. But after Magnus Carlsen's move, retreating the knight, attacking this undefended pawn, suddenly, look at this pawn. White's central pawn is such a strength. We call this a protected pass pawn. It has no rival. Later, it will try and run towards the end of the board. But more importantly, it is protected. It does have a mate. It does have a fellow protecting it. It's going to be an eternal strength, something that Nakamura has to worry about for the rest of the game.
Right, absolutely. He does have to worry about it. That's such a controversial decision. I would have really hesitated to allow a pawn like that, because that is the best type of pawn there is on the board. I mean, the only good thing that I can see for Hikaru is that he does have just like we have the best type of pawn, there's also the best type of blockaders. Queens are awful. You don't want to blockade anything with the queen. But the knights are the best ones, because when the knight is standing in front of an enemy pawn, it is still working away. But here we have a very mysterious rook move by Hikaru Nakamura, just passively defending the pawn. And didn't expect that one.
Yeah, I think Hikaru Nakamura, we talked about that protected passed pawn. He needs to blockade it, and the best blockading pieces, Jovanka mentions, they are knights. Knights, they can blockade things while still controlling 8 squares. That is the fantastic thing about knights. The black knight will sit in front of that central white pawn, but the problem is, long term, if all of the pieces come off the board now, if the knights, the bishops and the rooks are all traded, White will win. Magnus Carlsen will win, because protected passed pawns are vital in king and pawn endgames. So long term, that's what Magnus Carlsen will be aiming for. He'll be aiming to trade off all of the pieces now and rely on that protected passed pawn to win him the game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great pawn. And now we can, let's see if that plan actually gets put into operation. I would like to see these, because often they happen not just immediately. You won't see like a big rush of pieces. You'll see like some small things happen, like one king slowly advances, some pieces get slowly attacked, and then before you know it, knights have maneuvered themselves into the best spot, and as you say in the UK, Bob's your uncle. Suddenly there's a winning king and pawn ending.
This is your uncle.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty, I find, of playing through the games of these top players, especially these decisive results when we do have them, is that sometimes you'll play through an 80-move game and you stop at certain points. You stop at move 20. You think, OK, what are the long-term plans for either side? And then you stop a few moves later. You think maybe move 40. You think, OK, what are the long-term plans for either side? Somehow, one of the players always seems to get their plan in. It might take 20 moves, 30 moves, 40 moves. But as long as you know what to aim for, it makes the journey getting there so much easier. And actually, that's how they study chess in places like Russia. They study the endgame first, because then it makes it easier once they know what they are aiming for, what they want to be left with. It makes it easier, the rest of the game, to work out.
Right, exactly. I mean, I've seen situations where you're just like, OK, bishop, if I go for a bishop ending, that's it, it's won. And before you know it, they've gone for a bishop ending and they've played into it. And the other opponent didn't actually realise that that was what was needed. And they've kind of fallen into it like hook, line and sinker, and that's it, game over.
Yeah, I found myself when I was first learning the moves, when I was making my journey through the ranks, I struggled to know what I should be aiming for, which pieces to exchange. And that's why studying endgames, I mean, there are plenty of places to study endgames. For example, on Chessable, we mentioned the Chessable Challenge earlier. There are great courses on there as well, endgame courses. Magnus Carlsen explains his best endgames on that site.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much, so many good tools out there to learn the endgame. And that will help, not just in the end, it will help all parts of your game.
There's one actually really great endgame course that they have there, which is the 100 endgames you need to know, which is based on a book. And they've even got Magnus Carlsen and some other top grandmasters doing it. And it was quite interesting with Magnus Carlsen because he was pitted against his dad.
His dad's a very good player, we should mention.
His dad had read that book and his dad had taken the test. And so Magnus was like, okay, I've got to beat my dad on this.
Are we allowed to know who won, or spoilers? So.
No, I think we can guess.
And Magnus, I mean, I first played him when we were both 9, 10 years old, and he's been an endgame virtuoso, as Jovanka mentions. He's been that for the whole time. And meanwhile, if we catch up with the game, there have been a few small developments. If we bring up the analysis board, we can see what Black has done so nicely, I feel, to try and combat this protected passed pawn. He's just planted his knight in front of it. This knight, we mentioned, is a great blockader. Only one piece can actually remove this knight from blockading that pawn, and that is the white knight. Therefore, Magnus Carlsen, his next move, he wants to bring his knight to the center, exchange off this black knight just to clear the path for his remaining pawn. That's Magnus's plan. Meanwhile, Black, Hikaru Nakamura, he needs to maintain this knight, or he needs to start creating some counterplay. Maybe he'll start playing on this right side of the board. Maybe he'll bring his king towards the center. I think this is a critical moment for Hikaru Nakamura. If he can find a good way to maintain his knight, then he's got great chances in this game. If Magnus can trade off that black knight, I think Magnus will be in charge.
Do you remember the result in the very first game you played against Magnus in your life?
Yes, I remember all of them.
Do you?
Partly because I didn't win any of them. Yeah, we played, I think, 4 draws at the beginning, and then he's beaten me the most recent times. We have, however, played lots of online blitz, and yeah, I do lose a lot of games there, but I have won a few. So,
have you played all of the participants in the?
I've played all of them in over the board chess, apart from Radjabov, actually. Radjabov somehow never seems to be at the same tournaments as me. All of the others I've played on several occasions.
Well, we can start to see David's plan being put into action. You see suddenly Magnus has mobilized the rook, and you can see that Magnus is ready to kind of swap off knights if he wants to.
Yeah, and I think it would be very tempting for Magnus Carlsen right now to trade those knights off immediately. There's maybe no rush. He can trade them off in the next few moves. What I would be looking at, though, we mentioned earlier, always look for checks and captures in every position. So White can give a check with his knight, attacking the king, attacking the black knight. Black has to take it back. And after White recaptures, maybe what we'll see is Black use his king to blockade this passed pawn. Suddenly, the king will act as a blockader. Yeah, I'm not sure whether Magnus Carlsen, he should rush into this decision. Maybe he wants to keep the tension. Another thing I'd be considering is whether to improve White's king, bring that one towards the center, maybe to open up the right side of the board, open up some lines with the pawn trades. Because remember, the long-term advantage favors White. He has this very strong pawn in the middle of the board. So Magnus Carlsen, he'll just try and keep the tension and rely on that pawn to make the difference later.
Yeah, I just love that kind of like slowly improving with the king first and keeping the option open because, yes, we want... Oh, no, he's gone for it. He's not a patient person. Well, he is really, but okay. So we now see a knight trade and now Magnus has got his plan in. And there is a big threat in the position, actually, because White can advance the pawn, the big central pawn, and unleash this bishop.
That's right. If White gets a chance to push this pawn forward, then this bishop would suddenly attack a pawn. White would win a pawn in that situation. The white pawn attacking a rook, forcing it to retreat. Then the pawn, then the pawn next to it would drop off. So big threat, this pawn push. I would try and stop it with my king right now. Maybe Hikaru Nakamura, he might allow that pawn to push forward. He might try and improve this black rook right now. It needs to somehow re-centralize itself. It's just blocked by its own pawns. A key moment for Hikaru Nakamura. Actually, he didn't go for that. He pushed a pawn forward on this left side. He's just trying to open things up now himself, trying to create some counterplay. He wants to start pushing his own pawns, and we might see a trade in a moment. White has two choices, to capture here, or we mentioned this special move earlier. White can actually take this pawn on Passant because it has just moved 2 squares. It's the first time that pawn's been pushed, so White can actually capture it with his own pawn.
Well, that timing would be perfect since we just, in the video, had you teach us the en passant. Why is the name of it so French?
Ooh, there's quite a few French terms.
Yeah, we have Jadoub as well, which is kind of I adjust.
Exactly. The players before an over-the-board game, they say Jadoub, which means they're allowed to touch the pieces to adjust them.
Yeah. Even during the games, if this piece isn't firmly on the center, if it's kind of in the middle of a square, you have to say Jadoub first, because if you touch the piece, you actually have to move it. So if you say Jadoub first, you can just adjust it.
Well, we don't have that problem in online chess, do we? Only mouse slips in online chess.
Only mouse slips and, yeah.
Ooh, well, okay, things have been really heating up because Magnus has taken a very committal decision. He has pushed the central passed pawn, and now there's going to be a big elimination in the center, and you see some trades. And wow, that pawn is 2 squares away from queening.
That's right. White wants to make a new queen. Look how far advanced that white pawn is in the center. But at the moment, it doesn't have much backup. It doesn't have much support. Therefore, Nakamura, he's relying on the fact that that white pawn is more of a weakness than a strength. I don't like that last move, though, with Black's bishop. I'm very surprised. I think Hikaru Nakamura, maybe he's sensing the tension with his clock ticking down. Magnus Carlsen does have a couple of extra minutes right now. Suddenly, White's rook is on an open line. Rooks love these open lines. White's rook can suddenly zoom up into the Black's position. Also, White's pawn, it can advance even further if it wants to. As Black, I'm so surprised Hikaru Nakamura removed the blockade of that white pawn. I would have kept my bishop right in front of it if I could.
Yeah, exactly. I would have also kept my bishop in the way of the rook. And now the rook has moved to the perfect line, and Hikaru is desperately attacking that all-important pawn that is 2 squares away from queening.
Oh, but look at the bar.
Yeah.
I know, it's
I think White definitely has the advantage here. It's still maybe not winning immediately. It's not the decisive advantage that Magnus is looking for, and the bar does recorrect itself. It has the computer, it's looked a bit deeper and seen that White isn't quite winning, but we do see a trade there. I'm surprised. I would have kept that pawn as White. I would have kept the pawn in the center, moved it up 1 square. Instead, we see that Magnus, he's captured Black's pawn on that left edge of the board. He's captured that pawn, but he has lost that very dominant central pawn that he had a moment ago.
Yes.
And, Magnus, he's attacking a pawn now. He's attacking one of Black's pawns with his rook, but Black's rook has finally got active.
Now, there's one dangerous move here. But Magnus spotted it because there was the opportunity to fall into a checkmate.
Yeah, and if we bring up the board, we can see Magnus Carlsen, he avoided that trap.
It was a bit mean, that one.
It was a mean one, and it's such a natural trap to fall into. Black gave a check with his rook, hoping that Magnus Carlsen, hoping that White would just play a natural move, step forward with his king. Normally, we want to centralize our king in the endgame. White bringing his king forward, attacking the black rook, but suddenly there would be a devastating checkmate on the board. The rook would come across, attacking the white king. The rook is also protected by its bishop, and the white king is actually trapped. The white king is checkmated in the middle of the board. This would be a rare type of checkmate. Instead, Magnus Carlsen forced to play a move he doesn't want to play. He tucks his king away, back in the corner, far away from the action.
All right, and we do see 2 more games have ended, and we're back to all the draws now. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave and Timur Rajabov played a draw, and so did Daniil Dubov and Levon Aronian. So it's all up to Carlsen, Nakamura and Anish Giri and Alexander Grishock to fill up with some decided games here, some wins and losses.
Yeah, and that's bad news for Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. I think that pretty much mathematically eliminates him now. We thought he needed to win both of his last 2 games just to have a chance of qualifying. His fate is definitely out of his own hands.
Yeah, he can only get 5 points at the maximum now, and he is facing Timur Rajabov. No, he's not. He's facing Alexander Grishock in the last round. So probably it's all over for the Frenchman. Unfortunately, such a great player. It's going to be sad to not see him play quarterfinals.
Yeah, just somehow not quite at his best. And the key moment, the turning point, was that loss against Anish Giri that we saw earlier. That very dramatic game.
Yeah, definitely. You know, he's such a marvellous, tactical, tricky player. I really do enjoy watching him play. So it would be very sad that he doesn't reach the quarterfinals, but so be it.
One player that we're definitely going to keep an eye on is one player that is still playing, and that is Anish Giri. He is currently in 9th place, I think. So he's just outside the quarterfinals. He's going to have to fight in this game and in the last game.
Yeah, that's why he's still pressing for that win. He's going to try and take any chance he gets. And meanwhile, Hikaru Nakamura had a long think there. Now only 2.5 minutes on his clock. And I think he might have just made a decisive mistake. I'm shocked by that last move. I don't really understand it. And
I have to say, the bar has gone up all the way up to the white side. And isn't this just a pin?
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen, we see
look
that.
Look at the Stockfish.
So yes. Stockfish, the computer suggestions are just below the players right now. There's only 1 move which is winning for white. It will give him a +5 advantage. Every other move will just be a draw.
All right, so let's just keep an eye on that white rook now. Magnus Carlsen, if he wants to win this game, this is the move he needs to find. Oh, that's exciting.
And it seems to me like we've wrapped in with coincidence, because this was what you were studying in the chessable course.
Ah, was it? Wait, I can't see it. What is it?
You pin and you win.
You pin and you win. But it was the other way around.
Yes, okay, I see it now.
Yeah.
So white's rook, we're looking for that white rook to just step across 1 square. If it just moves across, suddenly there's a really devastating attack down this line. And we call it a pin because a lesser piece, this black bishop, is attacked. If it moves, then it gives way to an attack on a larger piece.
Magnus found it.
Magnus Carlsen, he has found it. Hikaru Nakamura looking away.
Oh, yeah, just look at his reaction. He knows
like
that
he's missed this move.
He's messed up, and yeah, you can see it.
Suddenly, black is forced to either lose a bishop or trade off into a losing king and pawn endgame. Okay, he has defended his bishop. Hikaru Nakamura, he stepped across with his king, defending this bishop, attacking the white rook. White's rook just stepped up 1 square. But the problem is for black, his bishop is paralyzed. This is going to remain this pin, this very awkward pin. Meanwhile, if black can't make moves, white's pawn is just going to race to its promotion square. Black is just completely paralyzed. Okay, he has pushed a pawn forward. There's a bit of a race here. White's pawn is running, black's pawn is running. But if Magnus Carlsen is careful, he should win this game now.
Okay, this is now super exciting. If Magnus Carlsen manages to beat Hikaru Nakamura in this game, then Magnus Carlsen will take the lead in the preliminaries before that last round. And we know it's always an advantage to be on top in the preliminaries.
And the pawn race is happening. Magnus has advanced his pawn, and so now we're going to see it. And now I think we're going to see a bishop trade.
Yeah, and the problem is, for white, there's a key detail. Okay, white's rook has captured the bishop, and Hikaru Nakamura, he just resigns. He's just given up.
Wow.
So sudden. We'll go back to explain that moment shortly. But shocking stuff from Hikaru Nakamura. He was fighting well. He was defended perfectly. He was still in the game, and it all just fell apart so quickly, so dramatically.
Wow. Okay. Well, it did seem for a long time that Magnus did have an advantage for a long time here, but it was eventually a blunder by Hikaru that did this.
And it's no coincidence that Hikaru blundered. It's because he was on the back foot. He was on the defensive for the whole game. And psychologically, that is hard. Maybe we can bring up the board just to show why Hikaru resigned at the end, because it's not obvious at first sight. We did see in this position both pawns running down the board. White's pawn is running, black's pawn is running. But the key factor after Magnus Carlsen played rook captures bishop is that in this position, if black recaptures back, we see a lot of trades. And in this position, both sides are about to make queens, but white wins the race. White makes a queen first, and he promotes with check. So black doesn't have enough time to make a queen of his own. That's the difference between one tempo, just giving that check. That must have been what Hikaru Nakamura had miscalculated. He missed that his king was attacked. And
yeah. I agree. I think he just calculated that all the trades would happen. He would catch the pawn, yada, yada, all good. Except it wasn't. Except he forgot that his pieces were in a complete bind and that Magnus could just freely advance that pawn. And yeah, that was it. Game over. And I agree with you, David. This is kind of like Magnus's strategy. You put the pressure on, you put the pressure on until it cracks.
Yes.
Wow, and that means Magnus Carlsen is now in top of the table. He's gotten 2 wins now. He won against Daniil Dubov yesterday. And this is probably his favorite win, beating Hikaru Nakamura.
Definitely one of his biggest rivals, probably for the Airthings Masters crown. And the style in which he did it, I mean, I think he lulled Nakamura into this false sense of security. It looked like he was heading down this drawish opening, and suddenly he started applying the pressure, and it all paid out in the end.
All right, we are going to finish up this round 10 in the Airthings Masters. Only 1 round left after this round. Anish Giri is one of the players currently outside the qualified top 8 for the quarterfinals. He is playing Alexander Grishock here. He was playing. It's over. Is it?
Oh, it is over.
Yeah. It ended in a draw, didn't it?
Curse.
Yes. Okay. Well, we managed just to see Alexander Grishock leave the computer. I'm guessing this is a draw.
Yes, it looks like the players actually in this final position, they just agreed to a draw because there's no way that either side can make progress. It does look like White is in control, but Black was too solid.
All right. Wow, that was fast. Okay, we have now finished 10 of 11 rounds in the Airthings Masters preliminaries. Only one round remain. And to join us now, building up to that last very important round, we have Grandmaster Simon Williams joining us. Hi, Simon.
Hi, how are you all doing? Good?
We're good. We're excited because we haven't had that many draws today. Still quite a few, but not that many. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it seems to be a really exciting day. Often this is the case where they're getting to that qualification, sort of last countdown kind of situation, and the pressure's building. Some of them have got to win, some of them want to draw, but it's so close at the top now. I think going into this last round, there's many people who can go through, many people who can get knocked out, just depending how they play. So I'm very excited at the moment.
Who are you most excited to follow now in the last round, with 4 players leaving us after that round?
Well, I'm actually quite excited to see Anish Giri. I want to see him qualify because he's been one of the most aggressive players in the tournament. So I'm looking forward to see how he'll get on. It looks like Carlsen is back on form, beating Hikaru there. So he's finally found his form. And one of my favourite tournament players throughout this tournament has also been Daniil Dubov. So I've got my fingers crossed for him as well.
So, Simon, yesterday you were critical, and I think rightly so, of Wesley So for taking the draws. Today you must be very happy to see many more decisive games. Already in the first round, just as many decisive games as we saw the whole of yesterday.
Ah, that's true.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, they've come out swinging at each other, which I really like. You know, they could have sat there and tried to draw the way through, which I think has been Wesley's approach. I mean, I was quite critical of him yesterday, but it's working out for him. I mean, we all want to see a bit of a slugfest, and that is happening. Actually, I noticed with the Russian players, they seem to be coming out and really fighting, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, anything, like you say, can happen in this last round coming up.
Do you think anyone will be able to make a big comeback? I'm thinking of Anish Giri and Pentala Harikrishna. Do you think they can do it?
I've got my fingers crossed for Anish because, I mean, he's got this kind of rivalry with Magnus Carlsen, which we've mentioned before in the Skilling Open, and he's quite an amusing chap. You know, he's a funny chap, very witty. So I'm kind of like secretly rooting for Anish to get through and to face Magnus, and maybe one day beat Magnus, because then I want to see the Twitter warfare that will ensure after that, which will be worth it just for that. So yeah.
Simon, I just have to ask you, we have a little bit of a chess quiz going on. What is the best chess-inspired name for a pet? I know I put you on the spot, but you actually have a pet, yeah.
Well, Harry, of course. It's got to be Harry, right? So, I mean, Harry the cat or Harry the dog, something like that. I mean, you could call it after one of your favourite chess players, like maybe Magnus the cat, I don't know, possibly. So what names do you come up with?
My suggestion was Cat Sparrow.
Oh, that's quite good.
And I like Bob the Fish.
Kasparov, I like that one.
Yes, and Bobby Fish.
Oh, Bobby Fish.
Yes, of course.
Simon, you have a very famous cat yourself, right?
Ooh.
I do. Charlie the chess cat. Yeah, Charlie the chess cat is my cat who often comes and sits at the table, watches me play chess, and he's got his own Facebook page, which is a little bit weird. But anyway, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, Simon, we like to ask you every day about your favorite move of the day, and you have chosen a move in a game that was actually decided with a winner.
That's right. Yeah, it's a really interesting game in round one between the two Russian players, Nepo and Dubov. And we see that we've got this position, Nepo with the white pieces, and Dubov was literally going crazy in this game. It's the kind of game where he sees White's king and he throws everything at White's king, the kitchen sink, the pieces. And we can see here his rook is attacked in the middle of the board. And I was watching at this moment in time. And the normal player would kind of move that rook away, somewhere safe where it can't be captured. But he's not really a normal player, Dubov. Instead of retreating, this guy just loves coming forwards. And he plays the amazing idea, rook to e3. Now, the reason this is such an amazing idea is the rook is worth 5 points and the bishop is worth 3 points. He's already material down, points down, and he just throws more wood on the fire. He's basically saying, have all my pieces, I'm going to checkmate you. So really, really brave play. And the game continued with him fighting on here in a very interesting situation. The bishop comes in with check, and now his other bishop comes in to that square, and it was an exciting game. It failed. They do say fortune should favour the brave, but in this case, it did fail for him, and White defended brilliantly and won. But I still like the spirit that was shown there in this game.
And Simon, another move that excited you in this game, I've heard.
Yeah, there was. I mean, just in that position you got to, there's this crazy move here where Black has all these pieces kind of doing aggressive things, and that queen of his, the queen being the most powerful piece, you'd imagine it to jump into the action because it wants to have a piece of the fight. It just slides its way back into the corner. And this is an unbelievable idea. It's kind of resembles an AlphaZero move, AlphaZero being the strongest ever computer program. AlphaZero played moves like this. And the idea of this is to support Harry the H-pawn. Good on you, queen. And Harry the H-pawn wants to come up to h5 and trap White's queen. So it was an amazingly imaginative idea, but in the end, maybe a little bit too imaginative because it failed. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Simon, thank you so much for joining us. Your final predictions for Anish Giri facing Hikaru Nakamura in the last round. Do you think Anish will qualify for the quarterfinals?
I'm going to say yes. I've got to stick my words. Come on, Anish, you got to do the business here, and I hope he does the business and manages to win that one.
Perfect. All right, it's getting close. Thank you so much for joining us, Simon.
Cheers. See you again soon.
This is the moment. It has come up to the final round in the preliminaries of the Airthings Masters. 12 players will become 8 after this round. 4 will be knocked out, and nothing has yet been decided. It's going to get so interesting. And here we have the results from the 10th round with only one round to go. Magnus Carlsen did manage to get that win against Hikaru Nakamura, and he is now in sole lead. And then we had a bunch of draws in the other games, and that means, David, it's all up to that last round in the preliminaries.
Yeah, as you mentioned, nothing's been decided. Nobody is safe quite yet. I can't predict anything. I mean, these players, they'll have their calculators out. They'll be trying to work out the consequences of their next result.
And here we have it, the standings with Magnus Carlsen on top, and then 5, 6, is it 7 players on 5? No, 5 players on 5.5 and 2 players on 5 points. And then we do have those 4 bottom players that needs to fight. Anish Giri is currently outside the top 8. And we have to remember also, Jovanka, it's not only about qualifying. number 1 will face number 8, number 2 will face number 7 in the quarterfinals.
Exactly. Those positions are quite important because they determine the pairings, and they also determine whether your choice of color, and also whether you're going to get white or black in the all-important Armageddon game if it comes to that far. So yeah, absolutely impressive. So one thing that the players are getting ready, I just have to tell you this. Well, we had one player in particular who's been tweeting.
During the game?
Can you guess who? No, not during the games. After the games.
I'm guessing Anish Giri.
Yes, and of course he is playing Hikaru Nakamura, and Hikaru has of course qualified, and he suggests to Hikaru, maybe play the Bong Cloud, which is actually just to move the king very early on in the opening. And it's kind of a reference to Nakamura doing that in the US Chess Championships against another opponent when the result didn't matter. So, yeah.
All right. Funny tweet there by Anish Giri before the last round of the preliminaries. Ladies and gentlemen, it is about to start, and these are the games for the final round. Alexander Grishock will face Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, who is currently out of top 8. And then we have the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi. He's going to play Magnus Carlsen, who is in sole lead. Next game we will have is Levon Aronian playing David Anton, who unfortunately is out of the tournament. And then we have Wesley So, who's playing so many draws, but he's now going to play Daniel Dubov, who usually pushes for the win. So interesting game there. And then we have Timur Rajabo. He is going to play Pentala, Hare Krishna. And then the game that we will follow, Hikaru Nakamura coming from a loss against Magnus Carlsen, playing Anish Giri, who simply needs to win this game, David.
Yeah, Anish, I mean, he knows what he needs right now. His fate is still in his own hands. If he wins, there's still a decent chance he'll qualify, but he is facing a pretty scary opponent, Hikaru Nakamura, and Hikaru Nakamura bent on revenge for that last game.
And we did see most of the players being ready for this final round in the preliminaries of the Airthings Masters, hoping to qualify for those quarterfinals, but 2 players are missing, and it is Hikaru Nakamura and Anish Giri. What are they? I mean, we don't know if Anish Giri is missing because he's been invisible all day.
That's right, he's forgotten to take his invisibility cloak off. Meanwhile, Hikaru Nakamura, in his lucky shirt, wasn't so lucky in that last game. And it looks like he is ready to kick off.
All right, well, can't mention it enough. It's all about winning this game for Anish Giri if he wants to qualify for the quarterfinals. Probably, it's all about winning.
Yes. He knows that a draw won't be enough either way.
And you have the calculator ready, David?
I do have my sparkly homemade calculator ready to work out all the tiebreak rules to see who makes the cut and who doesn't.
Exactly, because it's not just about whether Anish wins, he also needs other people to lose or maybe even to draw. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's right. The players have started now. Hikaru Nakamura opening with his king's pawn. This is something he's been doing for many, many years. Anish Giri playing the Sicilian defense. It's only a recent addition to his opening repertoire, but he plays it when he needs to win in must-win situations. That shows that as Black, Anish Giri, he's not allowing the game to fizzle out. We will see excitement in this game. We'll see a full-blooded fight, a very rich, dynamic position. Meanwhile, Black's last move, bringing out that knight, attacking White's pawn in the center of the board, which isn't currently defended. Anish Giri asking questions of Hikaru Nakamura at this early stage.
All right, can we tell from this that, I mean, anyone is pushing for a win here?
Anish, he's not allowing Hikaru to shut down this game. A draw is enough for Hikaru Nakamura to go through. For Anish Giri, it's not. So, yeah, Anish Giri definitely trying to play for a complicated battle. And Black now taking space in the center. Black's pawns are further advanced than their rivals. Hikaru Nakamura just defending his central pawn there, bringing a knight towards the center. This game is going to revolve around the middle of the board for the next few moves. But it is kind of well known that this opening later in the game does become very, very imbalanced. White often attacks on the right, Black attacks on the left.
Yeah, it is going to be super imbalanced. I agree with you, David. We're going to see a series of moves that actually been seen before many, many times. It was in fact a favorite of Bobby Fischer himself.
That's right.
He really liked this opening. So let's see how it progresses.
Yeah, Bobby Fischer won many, many games with this type of setup as White while he was in his prime. And there we see White has committed his king to that right side of the board. I think Black will follow suit. Black will copy that. Anish Giri, he's taking a pause, though, because he knows that White has committed his king Okay, he does as well follow that. I thought maybe he would take inspiration from that win he had against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave earlier and try and castle his king on the opposite side of the board when, chaos would break out. Meanwhile, White just centralizing his rook, bringing his rook towards the center. This has all been seen before. This is very classical stuff. Hikaru yawning, maybe he's just...
It's early morning
It is early morning, yeah, you do have to remember that. So
it's only, 8 o'clock in the morning, I think, for Hikaru, and he's been playing for a few hours already. And luckily, we're now seeing Anish Giri. I hardly noticed that he just showed up here now.
We've missed him.
Yeah, we missed him.
And yeah, Anish Giri playing a very mysterious move on that last turn, just pushing a pawn near the Black King. I'm not sure I've seen that one before. Hikaru looks like he hasn't either. He's frowning slightly. Hikaru, he normally looks up to the left when he's trying to remember something, but if he looks down and he frowns slightly, it means it's new to him. He
hasn't seen this one before, and I agree. It's new to me too. I was expecting a much more aggressive approach on the left-hand side of the board for Anish just to throw those pawns forward, and we would have seen a race. But no, we have something unusual.
Yeah, a bit of a waiting move there from Anish Giri. Maybe he just wants to build the tension until a critical moment and then make his move and then start the complications. At the moment, that's just asking Hikaru, what is your plan? So Hikaru, he'll take a pause here. He's already spent a minute. Okay, there we see a bit of a waiting move as well from Hikaru Nakamura, just advancing a pawn only one square, gaining a little bit more control over the center. Both sides, I think, a bit indecisive right now, but also just waiting for their opponents to reveal their hands.
All right, well,
And again,
here he comes.
Anish Giri, yeah, he's going for it in this game. He's pushing his pawns forward on that left side. Yeah, I think he's just going to push everything on that left side. I wouldn't be surprised to see all of Anish Giri's pawns there on the left fly forward into the white side of the board. Okay, Hikaru Nakamura, meanwhile, has captured in the middle, and he's got his bluffing face on. He's frowning slightly.
Is this the bluffing face? I was thinking about it because it looks so overly suspicious.
Yeah, I think he's hoping maybe that Anish Giri is watching the webcams. He's maybe hoping to get inside Anish Giri's head. He knows Anish, he's only focused on one thing right now. Anish is focused on that win. Only one result. So maybe Hikaru, he's just adding a bit of mind games. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the players have actually told us that, especially when playing Hikaru Nakamura, they like to just turn their opponent's webcam off. It's no point in watching him because he always tries to fake it.
Yes, that's right. And he's extremely good at those psychological battles. Meanwhile, a pawn has been traded. The first piece has left the board, at least. Pawns have been traded in the center. Black's knight recapturing a pawn there. I love that black knight in the middle of the board. Hikaru, he'll be deciding how to get rid of that black knight now. Does he jump forward with his own knight? White also could occupy the center with one of his own steeds, but yeah, Black. Meanwhile, I think Anish, he'll be happy with the outcome of the opening. It's been balanced.
I think so, and it's the kind of position that perhaps he would be quite liking, because I personally would also like it if my opponent just eliminated in the center and didn't go full throttle with me in the attack. Okay, so we have some moves, and in fact, all this has been played before.
Wow.
Just one game, mind you. But so far, it's so good. They're following a game from 2019.
Okay. Would we know those players, Jovanka?
No.
Okay. So maybe these players, they're on new territory. Maybe they don't realise this has actually been seen before. We are move 12. Normally, the players, they're very well prepared. They've studied their openings in great depth. But around this stage, once both kings have castled, that tends to be when players start to be on their own, trying to figure out the plans. And I think definitely, at least from Anish's side, we can see him zoned in here, thinking he's just deciding where to put that black knight. If we bring up the analysis board, we can see Hikaru's last move. It's a very committal one. White's last move is to push this pawn forward one square. Remember, that pawn already moved forward one square just 2 moves ago. So spending another turn pushing that pawn forward. The idea is to get rid of an opponent's centralized knight. If your opponent has a knight in the center, it's always a good idea to kick it away. And Anish has a bit of an issue here. He has to decide, does he retreat the knight this way? Does he retreat it back towards his own king? Lots of choice. Either way, if he retreats his knight, there might be issues along this diagonal. White's bishop, bit of X-ray vision here, is looking at this black undefended rook in the corner. So, for example, he could jump forward with his knight and potentially attack this rook. If black's knight moves, we might see a capture, and lots of stuff is happening here. The game goes on. It's still nothing decided. It's very complicated, but that is Hikaru's plan, to make use of his bishop against that undefended black rook.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that is the whole point of white's play, you know, just to use that power of that bishop that is on the most perfect diagonal. You know, most pieces actually have perfect squares, don't they? So this bishop, for instance, wants to be on the longest diagonal possible. Okay, and we have a new move, actually. This is the new move, that he has retreated the knight to a square on the left side of the board. And yeah, things are certainly heating up.
Yeah, and I think that's a sensible move by Anish Giri. So actually the knight retreat, it did defend that rook in the corner, the black rook in the corner, but the knight now, that black knight is further away from his own king. We said it before, knight's a king's best friend. Black has no pieces around his own king right now. So later, not right now, but a bit later, if white can stir up an attack against the black king, there won't be too many defenders. Meanwhile, Anish Giri trying to challenge that long diagonal. We mentioned the white bishop being very strong potentially.
Mm-hmm. Look at the bar, I have to say. Look at the bar really does not like black's position. It's really loving white's. And the material is equal, we have to remind everyone, because, yeah, when you're a pawn up or 2 pawns up, okay, that will usually be reflected in the bar. But here, the material is equal, and, yeah, it's saying quite significantly an advantage for Hikaru.
Yeah, I think the last few moves have gone in Hikaru Nakamura's favour. I'm looking out for 2 moves here from Hikaru. I think 2 moves maybe give the advantage, and both of them involve improving this bishop. This bishop can jump out. It can. Okay, he has brought it out. He's attacking this pawn twice now with the knight and the bishop. A bit of teamwork, ganging up on this weak pawn. And look at this poor black knight. It's had to place itself on the edge of the board, doing a defensive job. It can't jump anywhere. It's just stuck defending one of its own pawns. And Hikaru, he says, okay, I'm not going to waste a moment. I'm going to punish you for putting your knight on the edge of the board. He's exploding open the centre with this last move, pushing the pawn forward. I think Anish Giri, he's going to regret having to put his knight on the edge of the board there.
And meanwhile, one game has already finished, and it is Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Magnus Carlsen. It ended in a draw. Magnus Carlsen currently in sole lead with 6.5 points. It's definitely not certain he will be the winner of the preliminaries, but it is a good chance he will be the winner of the preliminaries. And I'm going to look down the list for Jan Nepomniachtchi, currently then in second with 6 points. So he's also qualified for the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I think for both of those players, it just makes sense to play it safe. They don't want to risk their qualification just by pressing too hard in the last game. Imagine going all out for the win and suddenly realise you've been knocked out. A sensible result from both players there.
Yes. Well, I'm actually not 100% sure. Certain Jan Nepomniachtchi has qualified. I mean, obviously, a lot of players can still go past him. I mean, this is going to be a hectic hour for us now, trying to figure out who can actually qualify and who can't.
But that's okay, Kaya, because we have the calculator.
So many permutations. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. Yeah, I've got the answer, guys.
You got the... Okay, so what is the answer? Is Jan Nepomniachtchi definitely qualified?
I think he's odds on.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's almost certain.
I think he's guaranteed into the quarterfinals. And yes, I think it's the Anish Giri, Pentala, Hari Krishna who need to win, and those people hovering around the 8th mark who need to really make sure that they don't lose.
Yeah, I think in 7th and 8th place, Daniil Dubov and Alexander Grishock, those are the guys in danger of, they've got a trap door beneath them. They just can't fall through that trap door. They have to hope that the players beneath them do not win. They might be keeping an eye as well, Daniil Dubov and Alexander Grishock, on this game. If Hikaru is able to win, they'll breathe a sigh of relief and they'll relax a bit. But if Anish Giri does win, then he might be able to jump up and replace them. And meanwhile, we have seen a trade of pawns in the centre, and black just stepping across one square with his queen to just defend the knight in front of it. Very tense. Hikaru didn't look too happy. I think maybe he missed that last move, but white is still in control.
Yeah, I mean, what I really am a bit afraid for Anish, because obviously we do like the comeback story. Well, it's the fact that, okay, Hikaru has a better position, but also the centre is very fluid, and I can just see a lot of trades happening, and that it will be very, very, very difficult for Anish to actually pull off a victory because a draw is not sufficient.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I'm still worried about that black knight on the edge of the board there. It's struggling to get back in the game. It's already moved 4 times just to get to the edge of the board. Yeah, I think that knight is on a bad circuit. he's wasted too many moves already with that knight. It's going to struggle to get back in the game, and one bad piece often makes a position bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pressure is rising. I mean, what would you be thinking if you were Anish Giri right now?
I'd be thinking, try and survive as long as possible, get my pieces out, get that knight back towards the center, get that black rook in the top left corner. It's trapped right now. Get that into the game, and then start to worry about trying to win, trying to set some traps and create chances. He can't be worried about the result right now, especially because he's struggling a bit. The last few moves have gone in white's favor. As black, he just needs to be saying to himself, stay in the game as long as possible. The tension will build later on. He will get a chance at some point. He just needs to make sure he's fully ready to take it.
Yeah, and if say, for instance, Hikaru just launches beast mode and just kind of goes, well, you know, your queen is on the left side of the board, I'm going to look at the right side, would you be like, panic? Or do you think, would you think that perhaps, okay, well, this means that Hikaru wants to take risks and that I don't have to worry about the position being traded off into a completely drawn?
Yeah, sometimes actually the best way to win these games, especially against the very top players in the world, is for them to come at you so that you can counterattack a bit later on. It means that they're not thinking about the draw. They're going for the decisive result. And it just makes things easier. It makes it easier to get a kind of imbalanced game, to really complicate things, to make things messy. And if things get messy, that's when Anish Giri will get his chance. He's got to be hoping that Nakamura doesn't try to just trade everything off and settle for the draw.
All right. And Anish Giri, well, we know he needs to win in this game to have a hope of qualifying. And then I guess probably he's going to be following Daniil Dubov and Alexander Grishock's games. If he wants to qualify, he would hope for a loss for Alexander Grishock and for Daniil Dubov in this last round. But we're paying attention to all of the games here, all of the games to see who's going to qualify for quarterfinals. Now, Hikaru Nakamura doesn't have to be worried. He will qualify.
Yeah, and he might not have to be worried about his qualification, but he does look slightly worried. He spent over 3 minutes now on this move. He's still frowning a bit. I'm not sure he's trying to work out a forced win right now, but he will know that his position is very good as white, so he will be looking for something quite direct to punish Anish Giri for putting that knight on the edge of the board. That being said, Hikaru Nakamura, maybe his confidence was affected by that last loss against Magnus Carlsen. Maybe that's why he's been spending a bit more time here than he normally would have done.
Going under 10 minutes now, Hikaru Nakamura. And I have to say, Anish Giri, I've seen him close his eyes quite a few times during this game, trying to get into Zen mode, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. He needs to keep his emotions calm because, you know, he has to focus on what needs to be done. And that is, first of all, as David says, stage 1, survive this. Stage 2, get an advantage. Stage 3, win. Easier said than done.
Yeah, that's 3 very big asks from him, but... Maybe we can see his CO2 levels as well, maybe.
Yes, I'm actually following it online because obviously if you go to airthings.com/chess, then you can follow live all the air quality for the players with the device. And it's yellow now, the CO2 level. It's below 1,000. So air quality is getting better for Anish Giri.
Okay, and today has been his best day so far. He's been playing well. He got that win against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. I think...
Yeah, there we see it.
Yep, that's by far the best air quality he's had. And yeah, that's no coincidence that he has been playing well. Meanwhile, though, he does need to come up with a good move here. Hikaru Nakamura spent a long time, spent about 4 minutes on the clock and just slowly improved the white queen. And Hikaru is slightly shaking his head there as well. I think it's time for Anish Giri to either bring a rook into the game, one of the black rooks. I mean, neither of them are doing anything right now. One of them needs to be improved at least. Or maybe Anish Giri, he can start trading some pieces. And there we see, okay, he has swapped some knights off in the middle of the board. A set of knights disappear. Those bishops now, those light squared bishops along the very long diagonal there, they will also disappear from the board sooner rather than later. I would expect Anish Giri to capture that bishop right now. There we go. White recaptures. And Anish Giri, he's actually got a very healthy position apart from that black knight in the corner. I think it's time to figure out what to do with that knight. Or, okay, first he improves the rook. Sensible play by Anish Giri. His position is slightly better. It looks at least slightly better than it was just a few moves ago. That being said, Hikaru Nakamura he'll still be happy. His pieces are slightly better, especially his knight. The white knight is much better than that black knight.
Is this looking very bad for Anish Giri now, considering he needs a win in this game?
I wouldn't. It's definitely not losing. It's tricky. It's just difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be difficult to create winning chances. We did see a couple of trades there, and the more pieces leave the board, we've seen it before, the more pieces leave the board, the closer we'll get to a draw.
Well, we have a very, very interesting move on the board because Hikaru has just followed actually the computer suggestion and just moved the queen and sacrificed a pawn.
Wow.
And super exciting stuff. And I think it's you called it, David, is all going... Oh, and Anish has quickly taken... And look at the bar. It hates it.
Is that a blunder?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a mistake, but it's kind of fueled by the tournament situation. Anish, normally, he would not have played this move so quickly. Anish is just gobbling up a pawn here, taking this pawn which was undefended. But he's forced to take risks in this tournament situation. If he didn't capture that pawn, the best he could hope for is a draw. Now, at least he has a pawn up. He has something to cling on to. He has something to hold on to. If he survives, which is far from a given, then he'll have an extra pawn. The problem is white's rook will swing across, attacking the black queen. Black's queen only has one safe square now. He has to offer this trade. But when the queens disappear from the board, look at this. This black knight is trapped now at the side of the board. The black knight has to... I mean, maybe it can retreat to its start square, but look at what might happen. This black knight trapped, this black rook trapped. This would be a dream pawn sacrifice. And we're going down this line. This is the current position. We're about to see the queens being traded.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have to say there's one thing about the coverage of both this event and the Skilling Open is that the knights are really bad on the edge of the board. And you can see that knight that Anish has, it's just trapped. It can't make a move. I mean, it needs every single piece to defend it. I think Anish can only play. He can only retreat the rook. That rook just cannot.
Yeah, the black rook.
The knight cannot just move.
Yeah, the black knight, it can go back to its start square, but as we saw there, that would be very sad. White will be able to kind of box in that black rook on the top left-hand corner. Therefore, Anish Giri, he might have to step back with his rook in the middle to defend the black knight. Actually, he's about to make a move, I think. But either way, that pawn that he grabbed, I actually admire his courage there to take that pawn, to be greedy. He needed to take that risk in the tournament situation, but it will backfire. Hikaru Nakamura has worked this all out in advance. He saw this, Hikaru Nakamura, 5 moves beforehand, I think 4 or 5 moves beforehand. He's worked out that this position is good for white purely because of that black knight. Yeah. That black knight is so bad.
Ugly chess. Oh, so horrible. Okay. But now all Hikaru needs to do is deliver a check, and now the 2 rooks will double up. And just look at that poor creature in the corner.
Yeah, that poor black rook on the top left corner.
It's just...
All right, well, as we are seeing some drama on the board, we are actually now joined by Magnus Carlsen, who finished the preliminary. He is currently the leader, the winner of the preliminaries. And Magnus Carlsen, congratulations on qualifying for quarterfinals.
Thank you so much. Didn't know that I'd won the preliminaries, though. I know nobody can get more. Yeah, so at any rate, I'll get one of the first few seats. No, it was a good day. Today I played a lot better than I did yesterday and the day before. It was more of a typical performance in that sense, with some decent chess. So I'm really happy with that, yeah, now qualified for the next stage, and I can start looking forward to that.
So heading into the knockout stage, are you feeling that killer mode that you wanted to be in, is it coming now?
I think it's coming for sure. Didn't feel like in too much of a killer mode today, but I just think that the positions weren't ones that warranted that particular mode. So I think today was more a case of I played a lot more accurately, a lot better than I did the days before, and it really boosted my confidence throughout the day, not to be missing so many things and wondering.
And Magnus, we are currently watching the game between Hikaru Nakamura and Anish Giri. I don't know if you're seeing what's happening on the board here, but Anish Giri, he's been fighting today and quite not like we've used to seeing him fighting for those draws. He's really been fighting. Are you entertained by his games today?
Yeah, I think you're clearly in a desperate position coming into today, considering the tournament standings. So it's clear that he needed to fight, but it looks like it will not be enough because he needs to win, and you're never ever winning this position.
Okay, there we have the answer to this. And okay, Magnus, finally, obviously, we have no idea who you're going to be facing in the quarterfinals right now in the standings. It is Alexander Grishock, but is it someone you're hoping for or someone you're really hoping you're not going to face?
No, I'm okay with everybody.
Great. Looking forward to seeing the Killer Instinct tomorrow, Magnus. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I guess he gave us the answer. No way is Anish Giri winning this position.
That's right. So material is level at the moment. Both sides have the same pieces, the same pawns, but I think the best Black can hope for is a draw. And we see it with Hikaru Nakamura's last move, just pushing a pawn forward at the corner there. We've also mentioned this. Knights are extremely bad at stopping these corner pawns. These corner pawns, and actually White's corner pawn here is very far away from the Black king, for example. So not many pieces can stop it. Hikaru Nakamura, he's going to keep pushing his pawn there on the left side. That pawn will race through. Even if Anish Giri stops that pawn, the most likely scenario is that he'll get a draw. A couple of pawns might come off, the knights might come off. The best Black can hope for is a draw here. Hikaru Nakamura is the only one who can win this position.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the problem with this must-win situation because, you know, Anish really is suffering, and I'm not even sure whether he'll get the draw.
Yeah, I think Hikaru is a big favourite to win this one.
Yeah, I think that the situation demands so much from him that, OK, and there we have a very risky scenario from Hikaru. Hikaru just pushes the pawn forward. He doesn't care about the knight. I love it.
Wow, that's a big decision. And if we bring up the analysis board, we can see that's a knight sacrifice. White is offering a knight here. He did not protect this piece, which was attacked in the middle of the board, this octo knight. Black can capture it, but there would be consequences. We talked about this corner pawn. Okay, Anish Giri has captured it. We'll see a few quick moves. White gives check to the Black king. The Black king has to sidestep. White's pawn is about to promote into a new queen right now. White's trap is that he will sacrifice his rook in order to create a free square for his pawn to promote. So now White will sacrifice his rook. He'll give a check. Black will be forced to capture, and White will make a new queen. And White is winning this game. Hikaru Nakamura, he's inches away. He's just 2 or 3 moves away from winning now. Anish Giri, he took risks, but it will backfire.
It's all due to him, like, taking that pawn. He opened up the position when this knight was so badly placed. Okay, so now I think we're going to see the game ending.
Yeah, Anish Giri.
Anish Giri is actually looking really sad.
Yeah, because it's like this is when it dawns on you that the tournament is over. And no one likes to be eliminated. And especially when, Anish did really entertain us. He won a lot of games, he lost a lot of games, and he really fought very hard.
Yeah, we should also mention, though, that he's not completely lost in this position yet, but Black has no winning chances, therefore Anish Giri will be out. If we do a quick bit of maths, I was going to say, just the idea of mathematics scares me right now. If we do some maths, we can count. Actually, the material is still equal on the board. White has a queen worth 9 points. In return, Black has a rook, a knight, and a pawn. Those are also worth 9 points. But the problem is that the queen is just too powerful. She will dominate the Black rook, the Black knight, and the queen will target pawns on the right side and the left side. Black will be forced. Anish Giri will be forced to just kind of curl up into a ball and hope that he could just create a fortress and defend everything. The queen is the one, though, that will do all the work. And I think Hikaru Nakamura should win this game.
Yeah, I agree with you, David. Yeah, there's the chances for a fortress, but I completely agree. The problem is that White, with the queen, with pawns being on the left side and the right side, this is just too much for the rook and knight to coordinate. If it was a rook and a bishop, perhaps But and the knight here has no posts whatsoever. Knights like to be supported by pawns, and that poor knight at the edge, all alone.
He keeps making the same mistake, Anishgiri. Yeah. His knight got off the edge of the board, but now it's back on the edge of the board.
Yes.
Yeah, that knight, if it were right in the centre there somewhere, if it were anchored by a pawn, it would be perhaps enough to hold the position as black. But that black knight is just so sad right now. Anishgiri, he's just leaning back, closing his eyes. He looks resigned to the fact that he will be eliminated, unfortunately, after this game.
It really reminds me of that football quote. They think it's all over. It is now. Although probably I'll eat my words after.
Chess is cruel. He won a game earlier today. He probably thought, he was just out of the danger, but just when he's out of danger, they pull him back in. And this black rook has had to retreat, and white now is going after that black pawn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they are still playing, and Anishgiri, he's not winning this game, so he will be out of the Airthings Master and probably will start preparing for another tournament, Tata Steel, which is an over-the-board tournament. I think he's definitely playing that, being a Dutch.
Yeah, he's the local favourite in that tournament, and that's one of the kind of super tournaments that we talk about, with all of the top players in the world often playing there. This year, they've got a very young, energetic field as well. And I think that will take place in late January. So Anishgiri, he's got a lot to look forward to in the new year.
So that tournament, a few of these players will be playing there, I think, sort of getting ready for the next Champions Chess Tour tournament, which is in the start of February.
Yes. I'd love to see, love to ask them what their approach will be to the quarantine that they might have to take, and also their New Year's resolutions, what their goals are for chess in 2021.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, it is Anishgiri thinking he's right there going under 5 minutes on the clock. I mean, does the clock have anything to say here, or is it just Anish being very that he knows he's not winning this game?
I think he knows he's not winning this game. He's actually hiding his face right now. I've been there many times over the board. You know you're losing. Your opponent knows he's winning. You don't want the world to see you, so you kind of cover your face. And I think that's what Anishgiri is doing right now. The clock isn't his friend. He is 4 minutes down. But I think even worse than the clock is his situation on the board.
And obviously we are paying attention to all the games going on in this final round of the preliminaries, because not only will 4 players be out, but it also is a matter of who will face who in the quarterfinals. Number 1 will face number 8, and I think number 1 is Magnus Carlsen. He's going to face number 1. Number 2 will face number 7, so it's very interesting. And actually we see a few games might be decided with a winner. This one is one of the games, and then we also see Wesley So, Mr. Draw. Looks like he's winning against Daniel Dubov right now.
And actually, I think there might be some drama still remaining, because Anishgiri, he took risks in this game. He wasn't happy with the draw. But the 2 players above him in the table, Alexander Grishock and Daniel Dubov, they're both losing. So it might turn out that a draw would have been enough for him to qualify. Will he have gambled away his chances? I mean, Daniel Dubov and Grishock, they're both losing right now. We can tell below the players' count.
So if he keeps his optimism, just saying, there is the possibility that there might be some fortresses. Maybe there's still everything to play for, because I can just see a scenario where white runs with that pawn on the left side, forces black to sacrifice, well, not sacrifice, to give up the knight for that pawn, and then somehow the rook can just hold.
That's right. Rooks are tricky pieces. I mean, they're called castles sometimes, and you can just tell by the structure. They're just hard to break down. And white's queen might find itself facing off against the black rook later. There will still be some small drawing chances. I think it will need a miracle.
The problem for Anishgiri, though, is that if he is on the same score as Grishock and Daniel Dubov, then he lost against Daniel Dubov. So with the head-to-heads, he's probably going to be behind those 2 players.
Okay, but against Alexander Grishock?
That was a draw. And
Grishock against Dubov?
That was a draw.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, I mean, there's so many things to calculate, but I definitely think Anishgiri needs a win here.
His fate is definitely not in his hands.
No.
Meanwhile, Nakamura, he's kind of... He hasn't lost his advantage. He's butchering it slightly, though. He's shaking his head. And he's just, for no reason at all, he's allowed that black knight into the centre of the board. He didn't need to do that. Black's knight now nicely centralized, coordinating with the black rook. Black's rook is anchored by a pawn. Black's knight is anchored by the rook. And Nishikori, his position's improved, at least, over the last 2 moves.
Yes, some hope, but still, it's a big ask. I think Hikaru is being slightly dramatic about it all. And
we like the drama, though.
Because, yes, I think he's still got a fantastic position.
Yeah, and White's queen there, getting into the heart of the black territory, trying to attack the black pawns. Black's king, meanwhile, steps forward, keeping all of the pawns protected. So at the moment, everything in Black's army defends each other. Therefore, Hikaru Nakamura, he needs to come up with something a bit special to win this game. White's, the thing he's banking on, basically, is that pawn there on the left side of the board. That's his trump card, White's trump card. He wants to run that pawn to the end, but the black knight and the black rook will try and stop it. Nakamura, meanwhile, pushes pawns on the other side. He pushes pawns on the right flank, and that's just to try and cage that black king. Black's king will be a target. It always is when you're facing a queen. And Hikaru Nakamura, very sensible stuff, just pushing some pawns on the right side there. But sooner or later, he'll launch his other pawn on the other flank.
Yeah, he has to start moving things on both sides. This is the beauty of the queen. The queen can just play on both, and can also actually lose time, in which case a rook really can't. And yeah, and I'm really going to enjoy seeing White hassle the black king.
Yeah, that poor black king it is a bit stuck right now. It's hard to even find a useful move for black, especially with 3 minutes left on the clock. Yeah, everything's against him. The position, the clock. His king is weak. White has this extra pawn on that left side. Yeah, and Nishikori is still fighting, and that's why these players, they're so good. They always fight. You need to beat them 2-3 times in a game, and they will not lie down and let you just kind of fulfill all your plans. They will always find counterplay. They will always find tricks. And Nishikori, he has to be looking for those tricks. I do not like that last move though by Nishikori. Black pushes a pawn forward to the center. Normally, this is what we want earlier in the game, but now that black pawn, it was keeping the black rook defended. Black's rook is now temporarily a bit vulnerable, at least, and maybe White can try and take advantage of that in the short term.
So it still looks like Hikaru Nakamura is winning this.
Yeah, absolutely. He's well on track to winning it. It's just a question of how he can break through. And it's also a question of whether Anish will himself crack or whether he will just manage to find a fortress somewhere along the line. And chances are not good, but you never know. With this time control, and with things speeding up, people make mistakes, and we have to say the knights are the craftiest pieces on the board. They jump forwards, backwards, sideways, and can be quite confusing.
Well, if Hikaru Nakamura wins this game, he will be on 6.5 points. Wesley So just won his game, actually, as I was looking down against Daniel Dubo. So that means Wesley So is on 6.5. If also Hikaru Nakamura is on 6.5, then Magnus Carlsen will still be the winner, beating Hikaru Nakamura. All right.
Wow, and we need to bring up the analysis board. Black has just sacrificed a rook, but it's a trick, it's a trap. We talked about how kind of devious those knights can be. And with his last move, Nishikori, he's ignoring this threat against his rook. Hikaru Nakamura, he did not capture this rook because this would have walked into a fork, one of Kaya's favorite types of moves. Black would have now jumped forward, giving check to the white king and attacking this queen at the same time. White's king would have to move, and suddenly a full turnaround. Black would win the white queen, and Black has this extra knight and would win the game. So this is why we can never relax too early. Even when we've got an extra queen in chess, there's always these tricks, especially with knights, these forks, something to look out for.
But just look at Hikaru, with his last move, he was like, I'm cool. I'm cool. You've left your rook on breeze, but I'm simply going to advance my pawn. That was the consequence. Your knight moved away. And so and now Hikaru probably Anish must move the rook. And there we go. We have a rook move, and now the rook is attacking both of these pawns. And it's going to come to that situation where one of the pawns is going to try and make itself a queen. Ooh, and I'm going to see that maybe Anish can try to give up the knight. That's what he's going to hope for. And hopefully that rook can hold some kind of fortress.
All right, we have another game finished. It is a draw between Timur Rajabov and Pentala Harikrishna. So Pentala Harikrishna is out of the tournament, while Timur Rajabov is safe with 6 points. We will see him in the quarterfinals. And we do have some moves.
Yeah, so Anish Giri, he's trying to defend here. He did win one of White's pawns on that right side. Now he desperately needs to get rid of White's remaining pawn on the left flank. As Jovanka mentioned, if he can, I mean, it still needs a miracle. If he can give up that black knight for that white pawn, he has some small chances to draw the game. It won't be easy. White is going to be greedy. Nakamura, he wants another queen. He wants a second queen on the board. But Anish Giri, if he wants to have a chance of surviving this tournament, he needs to draw this game. And now he knows. He might be able to see on his screen that Dubov has lost. Grishock is losing as well. With a draw, he'll jump up to the same points as them. And at least mathematically, there's a small chance he might be saved by the tie breaks. We'll see. He's ticking down under 2 minutes, though.
I'm just sitting here trying to calculate this, looking at the table. And I mean, I'm right now looking at Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. We almost wrote him off in the last round, but he's about to win the game against Alexander Grishock. And then Maxim will be on 5 points. I think actually the game finished. Okay, wow. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, we wrote him off. We thought it was all over for him, but he beat Alexander Grishock. That means that they both have 5 points. And winning that game, Maxim must be... And he also didn't... Pentala Harikrishna is on 5 points. I think if Giri saves this...
There's a chance.
There is a chance, because we will then have 5 players on 5 points. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he did beat Maxim Vachier-Lagrave earlier today, so his head-to-head is good against some players, is positive. He will be kicking himself, Anish Giri, that he didn't head for a draw straight from the opening in this game. He did take those risks, and he might get punished. Meanwhile, Anish Giri, he's advancing his king as black. That's brave, very, very brave. He's only got 1 minute left, though. Imagine last time in the Skilling Open, it came down to the last seconds. We still didn't know who qualified. Imagine if Anish Giri pulled it out of the bag again.
Okay, well, he's threatening checkmate now. So this is going to give always a bit of thrill of excitement. That knight has moved in and is now controlling the 2 squares that the king can fly to. And the heat is on.
Yes, with his last move, if we bring up the analysis board, Anish Giri, he's created a threat. He's still trying to set those traps for Hikaru Nakamura to fall into. If White gets careless and pushes the pawn 1 square closer to making a queen, this would be a huge blunder. Black's rook would come and give check, and suddenly White's king is trapped. The knight covers the 2 escape squares for this king. Therefore, Hikaru Nakamura, he sidesteps that threat. He moves his king across 1 square. It's still odds on that Hikaru Nakamura will win, but Anish Giri throwing everything at this game.
Well, I'm almost hoping that Anish Giri is paying attention to the other games and the table, and that he knows that, wow, actually he can save it, he can qualify. Maybe if he gets a draw here.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of online chess. You actually don't really know, because yes, you could potentially look at the scores. Somehow you get so absorbed with the games that you don't realise. And so I think maybe Anish just thinks, okay, I have to win, and maybe the draw is the best I can do.
And actually, we have some great people in the control room. Grandmaster Jon Ludvig Kammer is sitting and he's calculating constantly here. And he just sent me a message saying a draw will save Anish Giri, because he has won against Maxim Vachier-Lagrave and Harikrishna, who are both on 5 points. So according to Grandmaster Jon Ludvig Kammer, a draw would save Anish Giri.
I just can't believe that Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, after we had ridden him off, after his loss, that was it, that was over. And then suddenly he is in 7th place as things stand. So he's kind of hoping that...
He'll be hoping that Nakamura wins this game, because remember, Vachier-Lagrave lost to Giri, so those head-to-head would be worsened by that result. Meanwhile, Anish Giri, he's retreated his knight. He created those checkmate threats, but they didn't quite work. White's king escaped to safety. So Anish Giri, he needs to sacrifice his knight for that white pawn on the left flank. If Anish Giri could sacrifice his knight for that pawn, he will possibly hold this game. That's what he needs to do. But his clock situation, 20 seconds against Nakamura's 6 minutes. It's not easy. I think maybe one saving grace, one thing that I wish I could tell Anish right now is that game that I mentioned to you guys earlier that I drew against Nakamura. He had a queen, I had a rook and a knight, and I managed to draw. So it's very, very similar to that situation. there is a track record of Hikaru failing to win those types of positions.
Okay. Wow, this is really getting interesting, and I'm so curious if Giri is sitting there, sort of aware of the tournament situation, and that he can actually save this with a draw.
Yeah, in a way, maybe it's better not to be aware, so he can fully focus on the game. Maybe his nerves will be kind of accentuated if he does realise that the other games have gone all in his favour. He couldn't have hoped for better results in the other games, to be fair.
And another game has finished. David Anton has beaten Levon Aronian. Unfortunately, David Anton is out of the tournament. He was before this round, but a nice ending for him. And Levon Aronian with 5.5 points. He is safe, and we will see Levon Aronian in the quarterfinals. So the question is about those players on 5 points and Anish Giri, who will be on 5 points if he gets a draw here.
Oh, and the trouble just keeps mounting because Hikaru has just moved the queen to attack the pawn and the rook. Oh my goodness me. And now things are looking even worse because that white pawn has reached one square further. It's one square away from queening. And I think I know that he's planning to, okay, it's going to be over, isn't it? It's over. He can just promote the pawn.
I think, okay, we see Hikaru Nakamura play a joke there. He promoted to a rook instead of a queen, and Anish Giri has had to resign. We'll go over that moment over on the board at some point, but Hikaru Nakamura did find a way to win. Anish Giri fell at the final hurdle. He was so close to qualifying.
So close. He didn't manage. He needed a draw in this game, and he might have qualified. Obviously, Hikaru Nakamura with a win here. He is safe. He is on 6.5 points with Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen is the winner of the preliminaries, and I'm just going to update the result list here to find out who is. Okay, are you ready to hear who the two final players are? Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is in 7th place. We wrote him completely off the Frenchman, but he is ready for the quarterfinals. And then we also have Daniil Dubov in 8th place. Wow. Okay. I'm so surprised Maxime actually made it here. That final win against Alexander Grishock was all he needed. We see the results here from the final preliminary round. Hikaru Nakamura getting that decisive win against Anish Giri, or Anish Giri getting that decisive loss. Wesley So winning, finally, a game against Daniil Dubov. And Timur Rajabo played a draw against Pentalahari Krishna. Jan Nepomniachtchi, Magnus Carlsen, that was a quick draw. Levon Aronian lost actually to David Anton, but Levon Aronian we will see in the quarterfinals. David Anton is out. Alexander Grishock lost that decisive game against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and that means Grishock is out. Maxime is in.
Yeah, and actually, this is the second tournament in a row we wrote off Maxime before the final round, and twice he's shocked us and climbed up. I mean, we heard yesterday he has this degree in mathematics. Maybe he knew all along those tiebreaks gave him a chance, and yeah, he won when he needed to win.
Yeah, that was a crunch game right there at the end because he actually defeated one of his rivals, Alexander Grishock. So absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah, amazing. Heartbreak for Anish Giri, but delight for the French fans.
And fantastic that we see that starting to winning games in the last day. That's all that matters. The players who did that, who actually Maxime Vachier-Lagrave lost against Giri but won this final game. And that was what he needed.
That was just what he needed, and that was enough to get him through to the quarterfinals and have a spot against who will play number 2, Hikaru.
Wow, okay, well, we do know now that Magnus Carlsen will face Daniil Dubov in the quarterfinals. I mean, Daniil Dubov, a young guy, but he is in Magnus Carlsen's coaching team. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and also there's history between them. Even during this tournament, Magnus Carlsen did grind out that long victory against Daniil Dubov. Dubov, his young pretender, he'll be looking to strike back against his employer, I guess. And yeah, that one, it's so exciting. Both players love to go for the win.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait for that one. That is, like, for me, the dream matchup. You know, I would have loved to see that in the final, but I'm seeing it in the quarterfinal, and I couldn't have asked more.
And then we will have Wesley So, who will play Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. That's going to be interesting, too.
Yes, that will be certainly interesting because, Wesley has been very strategic during these preliminaries. He's done enough and, he's come up with some amazing victories at the right minute. And we saw him absolutely ferocious in the Skilling Open. And I'm looking forward to seeing that Wesley come back into our screens.
And we are right now joined by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who has just in the last minute qualified for the quarterfinals. Congratulations, Maxime. Oh, he's struggling with his sound. Can you hear us now, Maxime? Some technical issues there. We will wait to hear from Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He must be feeling so happy. I'm so excited to talk to him.
Yeah, and actually that confidence might carry through. He's got that momentum now. It might carry through into the knockout rounds, and he'll think that if he can survive today, if he can survive having 2 difficult days, anything is possible in the rest of the tournament.
We are working with the sound here now. He did get that final win against Alexander Grishock in the last round. We didn't follow that game, but do you think he played something risky there? I'm just looking at the clock, and actually Maxime finished with 11 minutes on the clock versus 11 seconds for Alexander Grishock. So it seemed he was very solid in that last game.
Yes. And actually the final position there was actually a mouse slip by Alexander Grishock. He was losing anyway, but all remaining chances he had were ruined by a mouse slip. So Maxime Vachier-Lagrave riding his luck in more ways than one.
Oh, we see it here, actually.
Yes, and we see it here. So actually, we're looking from the white side, and this black pawn, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave playing black, this black pawn is very close to promotion. But Alexander Grishock, he tried to capture this pawn. It was white's move. He tried to take it. But due to the mouse slip, he dropped his rook on the wrong square. He dropped it 1 move too short, allowing black to make a new queen. And actually, he didn't even wait for that new queen to enter the board. He resigned after making this terrible mouse slip. If he had played rook takes pawn, he might have been able to continue the game. Black would capture a pawn here, and the fight goes on. Black is still the favorite. Black has 2 versus white's 1. But this would have led to a very tense finish. Instead, a mouse slip and ended Alexander Grishock's tournament.
It ended Alexander Grishock's tournament, but Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is now ready for the quarterfinals again. Maxime, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's very undeserved
due
to my play today, but I'll take it anyway.
Definitely. I mean, we have to admit, we almost wrote you off after round 10. And then in round 11, you're coming back with a win here. Were you almost surprised there to see that it actually took you to 7th place?
Totally. I knew it was not completely over if I won, but given the course of the game, I didn't expect to have any winning chances. And then I don't know what went through Sasha's mind, but he gave me way too many chances out of absolutely nowhere.
So, Maxime, we have followed a lot of your games. It's been so entertaining to watch you play here. We know you are one of the leaders in the candidates tournament, and you have told us that you don't want to give away all your good openings now in this tournament, heading into the candidates sometime in 2021. Have you tried to experiment a little bit so far in this tournament?
Well, I've been experimenting for a while now, but I mean, I have not yet a good idea of what I will play in the candidates. So, I mean, I have an idea, but now I have many ideas that I can use, and we'll see what happens in the actual candidates in terms of openings.
And we are actually also joined now by Anish Giri, 2 very different destinies here in the Airthings Masters. Maxime, just about making it to the quarterfinals. Anish, unfortunately, we're not going to see you play quarterfinals. How are you after that final game?
Yeah, no, I didn't expect Maxime will make it, actually. I mean, I don't even know how he finished against Rajabov, but I think he was lost from the opening there. So I thought he was doing very badly, but wow, he mounted a great comeback. And I'm quite concerned. I think maybe draw would have been also good for me in the last round then. That didn't occur to me at all. I was sure I'm in a must-win situation. So yeah, I didn't really get anywhere. The opening went really badly.
And I want to ask both of you, because yesterday, we had 21 out of 24 games ending in draws. How was the mentality different going into to today when, both of you and many players had to start winning? I'll start with you, Maxime.
Yeah, honestly, I just wanted to play chess from the start. And in the first 2 days, I mean, the results were not so great, but I had lots of opportunities. So, I mean, to be honest, I played so badly. So, like, I had fighting games at least because, well, Anish was in a must-win against me, and then I was white, and then I don't know how, but I got chances against Sasha. But yeah, my level of play was terrible, so I'll need to adjust that starting tomorrow.
How about you, Anish? We've been so entertained with seeing you, maybe more than we used to, seeing you really fight for wins in this tournament.
No, actually, yeah, I was in a tough spot. I think the format is not very good. I mean, first you make 8 players qualify for 12 spots, and then you complain every day about the draws from players. I mean, that's not very. I mean, it's either one or the other. And for me, I was not in a luxury position of playing it safe, so I had to go all out today, even in the last round with the black pieces as well. So yeah, I had to fight for my life, but unfortunately, it didn't really work out. I think the opening in the last game went really badly, and the position I got was very, very bad. Actually, if I would have had a controlled game, then maybe even a draw would have been enough. I didn't count the tie breaks, but I've beaten Maxime and also Anton, so maybe I would have made it even. I don't know. I have to see. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I was not one of the people who could afford to just sit and wait. But on the other hand, it's quite impressive. For example, Wesley's playing these events. I mean, it's so incredibly good, and it's as though you either just make a draw with him from the get-go, or if you don't, you get punished severely. So yeah, we managed to play a very, very good event again, and I mean, such results are inspiring. I mean, mostly, if you play it safe in too many games, then you start feeling bad about yourself, and then playing badly eventually. But some players, in particular Wesley and also Hikaru, they don't feel bad at all, and if they play for a draw, they make it. If they play for a win, they also win. So I mean, what can you do? Yeah? I mean.
And well, yes, David.
Yeah, I mean, commiserations, Anish. We were greatly entertained by your games today. I just wanted to ask about your New Year's resolutions for 2021 and your goals in chess.
Wow, I didn't think of it like that, but it's true. It's a good moment to think about it. And the only good thing about being knocked out here early is that I have a little more time now to prepare for my next tournament and to think about life in general. And yeah, I mean, I need to calm down a bit after today's games. Other than that, it's always the same. I'm a professional chess player. I focus on my chess so much, and when it comes to New Year's resolutions, it's also usually something to do with chess. I just try to improve my game and can get better every time. Yeah, hopefully. Especially, I'm looking forward to my next tournament. It's going to be hopefully Vaikan's A tournament. It's a live event in the Netherlands. It's a tough time to host an event, but well, it's something different. We are used to now to playing online, which are tremendous events that you guys are hosting here. But yeah, I'm looking forward also to see how the over-the-board event will pan out.
Yeah, and how much holiday do you give yourself after an event such as this, to both of you?
Well, it depends how much time I get between one event and the other one.
Mm-hmm. So you don't go, like for me, I give myself 1 day off, or maybe 2 days off. You just...
Well, technically, I mean, if I make it to the final, I will have to go to Vacancy very soon after because of the quarantine there. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, like if I have a week off, of course, I will generally take a few days off before going back to chess activities. I mean, I have lots of things I can do in between the chess.
But no time for you to take a break now, Maxime, because tomorrow quarterfinals start and you will face Wesley. So how will you make sure that he just doesn't go for those super quick draws in the beginning there?
Well, I don't know exactly. I just need to, refocus on my chess, play better, be in better shape, because Tuta was in actual awful shape and blundering everything. So, I'll take the gift of qualifying, but I know that I cannot afford to play like this against Wesley.
You're smiling, Anish.
No, I mean, the problem is not the draws. The problem is the losses. You have it all wrong.
Is that it? Okay.
That's it.
Well, Anichka, we have your expert tip for the Airthings Masters. Who do you think will do the best here?
It's all these players are so good. I mean, Magnus and Wesley. Magnus and Hikaru were always known to be good. And this year, Wesley got, lately, Wesley got a lot more opportunities. He didn't get too many invites in the first tour, but now in the second one he got, and he's showing great play. I mean, these three guys, I think, are head and shoulders above. I mean, no offense to Maxim, who is also a great player. But I think so far they've proven, at least so far, they've proven, and they've played very high quality chess as well, all three of them. And these three are favorites in my book. But everybody qualified, and also everybody who was invited are very good. And Maxim, of course, if he finds his form, is a tremendous player. Also, the Rajabov can be very, very robust and strong. And, in these close matches, he might also do very well. So we'll see.
All right.
Anish, one final question. We know that you've recently released a video course for Chessable on the Najdorf, and we've discovered it's Kaya's favorite opening. Any tips for anyone out there on learning the opening?
It's not only Kaya's favorite opening. It's a great opening that many people like and play, because it's very fighting opening and offers you lots of chances. And Maxim actually played it all his life. Now that finally my course is out and he can finally learn to play Najdorf the right way, he switched to this other opening called the Classical Sicilian, which is of course much worse. But I don't know, for Kaya, I think, I'm not sure. I think some of the variations are going to be a little too deep for Kaya, because it's also a repertoire that I try to.
They might be also a bit too deep for me.
Yes. Maxim, for sure.
Thank you, Maxim.
Yes. But in general, I try to make it something that can be also valid for players of a high level. So but it's fun. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Now, both of you, thank you so much, Anish, for joining us, and we wish you good luck in the next tournament. And Maxim, we wish you good luck when the quarterfinals start tomorrow. Thank you so much, both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maxim, and last thing, you still have time before next round to check out the course and switch and fix your 1e4 repertoire. You still have the time. If you start now, in 24 hours, you're there.
Yeah. Well, but I won't understand your lines anyway. So.
You can. There's so many arrows. I'm sure you manage.
So many arrows. Okay.
We know what you have to do now, then, Maxim. Straight in to look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Definitely what I will do.
Great. Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Anish Giri, he's not too sad. The humor is still there.
No, it's still there, and I really liked Maxim Vashil's dry. Yeah. That's just what I'm going to do.
That's what we like to see, players giving each other homework.
Exactly. Do you think, actually, Maxim will you asked him, is it normal to take a break after a tournament? Do you think he will take a break tonight, Maxim, or is it now starting to look forward to the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I think tonight he might relax a little bit. Today's been very stressful for everyone involved, all the players, the nerves jangling. But he'll be fresh, ready to go tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. I think it's time to look at the standings after the preliminaries. We started with 12 players. It is a major tournament, so that means only 12 players. This is the final result of the preliminaries. Magnus Carlsen is the winner on the same score as Wesley So and Hikaru Nakamura, but he does have a better head-to-head score against these players, beating Hikaru Nakamura. And then we have Janne Pomniachtchi and Timo Rajabov on 6 points, Levon Aronian on 5.5. And then, in the end here, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave managed to qualify with 5 points. Daniil Dubov just about qualified. And, I mean, we have to, even if we're going to miss Alexander Grishock, Anishka, we're going to miss all the 4 players that leave us, but this is a fantastic setup for the quarterfinals.
Yeah, this is absolutely dream. These are some fantastic players, and we heard it from Anish, actually. Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, Hikaru are playing astounding chess. So I'm really looking forward to this. Tomorrow is going to be so exciting.
Yeah, and it's hard to predict a winner. Anyone could win it. These are 8 of the best speed players, the best rapid players in the world. And I, for one, know there's going to be some surprises along the way.
And who has impressed you the most so far? I mean, we talked the first days about Levon Aronian, seemed very focused. Who's impressed you the most, David?
Ooh, it's tough to say. I mean, Magnus Carlsen, it feels like he's stepping up his game at the right moment. We said he struggled in the first 2 days. He only got the one win, and that was a bit of a lucky one. But today he showed his quality, and that's why he ended up atop of the tables.
He said, the world champion, Jovanka, he wants to get into that killer mode, and he felt maybe he's starting to get there. Do you think we'll see even more great play from him tomorrow?
Yeah, it was a bit scary, the accuracy that he played, and he put the pressure on Hikaru. It was like watching some formula. First of all, he just upped. He started off quiet, then he upped the pressure, then he upped even more, and then Hikaru just cracked. And if you think about it, Hikaru is one of the strongest players in the world, and Magnus did that to him very easily.
Wow. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, then we have the quarterfinals starting tomorrow, and this is what they will look like. It's going to be Magnus Carlsen against Daniil Dubov, and that's so interesting. We talked about it. Daniil Dubov is one of the seconds of Magnus Carlsen.
Yes, he's one of the seconds, and he's such an uncompromising player. He can be brilliant. I mean, for me, he played the game of the tournament, and that was already just on the first day. And it was just fantastic to see. So I'm expecting a full-on fight.
Fantastic. And then Jan Nepomniachtchi, Timur Rajabov. Who is the favorite in that one, David?
I think this is going to be one of the tightest quarterfinals, actually. It's hard to say. We heard Anish Giri mention that Timur Rajabov, he's so robust, he rarely ever loses games, and he actually thrives in one-on-one knockout tournaments. He won the most recent World Cup in 2019. That being said, Jan Nepomniachtchi has been great form lately, Russian champion. Nepomniachtchi, slight favourite, but too close to call.
And then we have Hikaru Nakamura against Levon Aronian. Jovanka, who's your bet on here?
Well, I think I'll have to bet on Hikaru Nakamura. He was so impressive in that game against Anish Giri. It was such a powerful display. So my money's on him.
And then finally, Wesley So against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Well, Maxime just about qualified. Do you think that energy from the last round going to take him all the way in the quarterfinals?
I'm hoping at the very least that he will be happy with his performances in these quarterfinals. Obviously, Wesley So rarely loses. He's so hard to beat. But as Maxime said, he's aiming to peak at the right time. And if he does, anything could happen in that quarterfinal.
All right. Well, the quarterfinal setup is ready. 4 players will now leave us, and 8 players are ready for quarterfinals. And also, we have a winner of today's Twitter quiz or Twitter question, Jovanka.
Yes. So our Twitter question: what was your best chess-inspired name for a pet? We had some great answers, including yours, Bobby the Fish, and Kato Khan was one of my favourites.
Ah, that's nice.
But the winner is Pavel with Stalemate with a chess ball. What a great name, Stalemate.
Such a cute dog as well.
I know.
I want that dog. Stalemate, looks so cozy. Fantastic. And he will obviously get 1 year subscription to Chess24 Premium.
Yes, and of course they will contact him in a few days with his prize. So.
Fantastic. All right, Stalemate the dog. I think that was actually the dog's name, so that's very fun. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was the preliminaries in the first major and the Champions Chess Tour Airthings Masters. Tomorrow, the knockout stages start with the first quarterfinal, so that's going to be so excited. We hope you join us again then. We start every day on championschesstour.com at 2:45 CET. So we hope to see you again for more chess fun tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.